All right, should be good to go.
Thank you very much, Eric. Hello, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the Town Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for October 13th, 2021. If you could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, very good. Noreen, if you could do the roll call, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. Chairman Payne,
Here,
Commissioner Claffey, Commissioner Fox,
Here,
Commissioner Havens,
Here.
Commissioner Linares,
Here.
Commissioner Sobieski,
Yeah.
Commissioner Woods,
Here.
Commissioner Woods, Commissioner Braverman,
Here.
Commissioner Gill,
Here.
Commissioner Haggerty.
Here.
All set.
okay, very good. We're going to have Brian Haggerty, Commissioner Haggerty, sit in for Commissioner Claffey. If you could make that a note in the records. And next thing is on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. And if I'm not mistaken, we'd like to, if there's no objection from the commissioners, add to the agenda an 8-24 for Ann Reynolds School renovation project. Is that all right with everybody to add that to the agenda?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Certainly.
Very good. Okay,
Mr. Chair, if I may,
certainly, Renata, go right ahead.
if I may just ask that you do a formal vote for this, a super majority vote is required to amend the agenda.
Okay, Noreen, if you could do a roll call, please, I'd appreciate it.
Okey doke. Commissioner Fox,
Yes.
Commissioner Havens,
Yes.
Commissioner Linares,
Yes.
Commissioner Sobieski,
Yes.
Commissioner Woods, Commissioner Woods,
Yes.
and Commissioner Haggerty,
Yes.
and Chairman Payne.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, unanimous.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Noreen. And
You're welcome.
That'll be on the agenda as C under new business petition 48-21. At this time now, we're going to open it up for public participation for items not listed on the agenda. Within the Zoom application, please raise your hand if you would like to participate during public participation. If calling into Zoom meetings by telephone, dial *9 to raise your hand to be recognized, or use *6 when recognized to speak by telephone. Please state your name and address for the record. Is there anybody in the public that would like to be recognized? All right, hearing none and without any.
Dominic, there are a couple people here that want to
Okay.
speak.
Certainly.
Mr. Lou Grubin, you can unmute yourself to speak.
You got it. Am I on?
Yes, you are.
on, sir.
Hey, guys, thank you very much. My name is Lou Grubin of 277 Culver Street. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present my opposition to the proposed zone change as presented.
This is for non-agenda items, Commissioner.
Oh, it's not?
There
What is-
will be, that's later on in the agenda, later on.
Okay, I apologize. Continue then.
Yep, no problem. Thank you.
You got
Is
it,
there
guys.
anybody else? Is there anybody else from the public wishing to speak on non-agenda items?
There's one, Diane Carey. You can unmute
Okay.
yourself.
Diane Carney, 25 DeCosta Drive. Just listening to your previous exchange, I wanted to comment on the proposed dog park. When can I do that?
That will be, Renata, where is that on our agenda?
It is under new business.
Okay, So-
Mr. Chair, however, that is not a public hearing item. So somebody should either comment about that at the town council meeting or
Yeah.
at some point later tonight when you open it up to the public. But I don't believe that you will have the ability to invite public comment as you are discussing that particular mandatory referral.
thank you, Renata. Diane, if you'd like to, you go ahead and make your comments now if you'd like.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Like I said, Diane Carney, 25 DeCosta Drive. I just wanted to express my concerns about the proposed dog park in town. I was at the site this morning. The entrance will be on the access road to Hartford Healthcare and the other buildings in the complex. Parking will be along both sides of the access road. There are no sidewalks, which means that the dogs and their owners will congregate in the street while they unload the cars and attach leashes or not and gather up their stuff. There will be children running around the street also, which would be very unsafe for pedestrians and drivers. Traffic will be obstructed by people, probably loose dogs entering and leaving the proposed park. I think this is a big safety concern and just imploring, asking you folks to really think about allowing the town to go forward with this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak on items that aren't listed on the agenda?
I don't see anyone,
Okay.
Chairman.
Very good. Thank you, Eric. All right, the next thing on our agenda is zoning enforcement officer's report. We have just a few things on there. Is there any questions for our zoning enforcement officer from the commission? Eric, would you like to report on anything?
Nothing. May you see the items that are on the report? Nothing major at the moment. So commissioners called me with some concerns about signs that popped up last week. I think most of them been removed. So
I have noticed that the amount of signs near the right of ways and the flags have all diminished. So thank you very much, Eric, for staying on top of that.
No
Yet
problem.
still being very flexible on offering businesses A-frames next to their buildings or other things for the businesses so that we can help the businesses the best we can. So thank you very much, Eric.
No problem.
Is there any comments from the other commissioners? Okay, the next thing on the agenda is remarks by commissioners.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Fox.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Number one, thank you, Eric, for making some quick action on those Go Net Speak signs right after I called you. At our last meeting, we approved a waiver for 203 Costello Road as presented by Alan Bongiovanni. And I have no problem with that, except for the fact that there is a Conservation Commission decision due on that. And according to, I thought of this later on, I would have said it there and then, but 6.3.5 in part says that the commission will consider the report of an inland wetlands agency when deciding activities affecting flood hazard areas. And I think we might have violated that regulation by voting on that before the Inland Wetlands Agency made a decision. And we have another one coming up, the Culver Street, the Bolton property that has to go through the Inland Wetlands Commission also. And I'm hoping we do that one correctly and wait until their decision is presented. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Commissioner Fox. I'll turn it over to our town planner, Renata. Would you like to comment on that?
So just to appease everyone, in preparation for that meeting, last meeting, I had read through some legal books that I have, Fuller's and Ziska's. Fuller is an attorney that is sort of like a staple attorney for these land use kind of matters, and the commissions and ZBA's authority and right to act on certain things. And Attorney Ziska is a longstanding attorney that has been doing this for many, many years and does a lot with this. And they had conflicting language. Essentially, Ziska's book indicated that the decision could not be made prior to the wetlands. Fuller's indicated that it could. In order to reach out the conclusion, I reached out to the town attorney who had responded to me by saying, and I believe that may even be in an email, I'll double check and forward that over to the commission, that yes, the commission can make their decision prior to Wetlands Agency's final decision. And you can also condition your decision based on their decision. It's essentially two separate sections of statutes, and the idea behind tying this together as a submission, because the real language deals with when these applications have to be submitted, has to do with the fact that they wanted this process kind of in a similar timeline. They didn't want planning commission approving something and then somebody coming in 10 years later for a wetlands approval. So that's why these have to be submitted together, but according to our own attorney, can be acted independently.
Okay, thank you very much, Renata, for that explanation. I appreciate it. Is there any other questions from the commissioners? Any other remarks? Could I have Commissioner Havens, could you read the procedures for our public hearings, please?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Procedures for public hearings. The order of proceedings at public hearings shall be as follows. A, convening by the chairman. B, reading of the notice by the commission secretary or a commissioner designated by the chairman to act in his stead. C, identification and location of the property involved by the town planner. D, a statement of the issue to be considered by the chairman or the town planner. E, presentation by applicant, limited to 20 minutes unless a specific extension is granted by the chair. F, persons wishing to speak in favor of the application, limited to 2 minutes per person. G, persons wishing to speak in opposition to the application, limited to 3 minutes per person. H, rebuttal by the applicant, limited to 5 minutes total. I, rebuttal by the opposition, limited to 5 minutes total. During a public hearing, it shall be within the discretion of the chairman whether the time limitation should be varied slightly, provided the commission consents to any such variance. In no case shall an extension be for more than 20% of the allotment indicated above, or 1 minute, whichever is greater.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Commissioner. And if you could also read our first public hearing petition 38-21, please.
Certainly. Petition 38-21, zoning text amendment, section 6.16, regarding the adult use cannabis sales in the B and BT zone and cultivation in the I zone. Applicant and contact Newington TPZ, continued from 9/22/2021.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. And I'm going to turn it over to our town planner for presentation.
Eric, can you make me able to share my screen, please? And in preparation to that, I'll just
You should be able to
reiterate
share.
again. Thank you. Second. All right, can everybody see this now?
Mhm.
Yes.
Excellent. All right, so just to premise this, because it's been now 2 meetings since we started talking about this, the proposed regulation is to add production, cultivation essentially, and sales of recreational cannabis. And my original proposal included these as a cultivation being allowed to be produced in industrial zone and sales to be allowed to be conducted in Berlin Turnpike zone, which is the northern section of Berlin Turnpike only. It does not encompass like the whole length of Berlin Turnpike commercial district. As we were discussing this, this is in response to the state changing laws. Essentially, as a municipality, as a zoning commission, you have 4 options. You can do nothing, you can allow it by regulation and then regulate it and set certain standards for how and where these places can be operated in. You can prohibit it, and the 4th one is essentially do nothing thing. If we do nothing, the defaulting provision of how this would be regulated would be the most similar use in that zoning district. In our previous conversations, I think we agreed that perhaps we would like to have some control as to where these places are located and also to regulate through some standards. So I drafted the language, I showed it to you last week. Like I said, we're talking about adding these provisions to our existing regulation that already regulates production and sales of medical marijuana. So we are considering, again, micro cultivators and cultivators to be allowed in industrial zone. This was raised as a question at the last meeting with regards to whether or not we should allow this in other zoning districts. And I'll get to that point in one moment. And then we really did not discuss expanding the sales in any other zoning district but for Berlin Turnpike zone. And again, that's just the northern part of Berlin Turnpike. So last Friday, because I wanted to kind of understand a little better what are potential impact of these production facilities, I set up a tour at CT Connecticut Pharma, which is a medical marijuana producer located in Rocky Hill. I extended an invitation to chair and to one other member of the zoning commission. He had chosen one that in the end wasn't able to attend. So at any rate, chair, myself, and the fire marshal went and visited this property. So the things that we learned in that visit, I'll summarize, and then please jump in if I miss something. The facility where this is located is unrecognizable from the outside. Like you cannot tell that this is what this factory was. It used to be some kind of medical assembly place. I don't know. They did something for medical industry. And the conversion is completely invisible. You could drive by and you would never know that that's what it is. In the back of the building, our fire marshal said that he could smell a little bit of an odor. I will say though that this is located in the industrial zone in Rocky Hill. So it really did not appear to me to have much impact to surrounding businesses. This facility was about 30,000 square feet of the growing area. So that would, if they convert from medical marijuana to also include the recreational, growing marijuana for recreational purposes, they will be classified as a cultivator, so the larger scale producer. The smaller scale producers would be something that is more in an area to up to 10,000 square feet of the growing area. We spoke to the property owner, and he had indicated to us that right now there are four production facilities in the state. They pretty much, at least he states, that they pretty much cover the entire need of the Connecticut. He had talked to us about the investments that are necessary to be made in this place. And I mean, I wish you would see this. This is not a factory, this is a lab. It's completely spotless. Everything is clean, everything is secure. There are like 4 entrances. You had to dress, like head to toe in like protective equipment as if you are accessing like a vaccine maker kind of place. It's really quite scientific and lavish looking. So he had said, because everything costs so much money to do these startups, that these 10,000 square feet places are very likely to not be able to, A, to be very competitive, and B, their investments, they're not going to, the small place will not be investing this much money, which then led me to think that perhaps if no filtration system like they have is put in, and if no this and that and the other, all these other expensive things that they have shown us, if they're not there, that the impact, the smell outside and perhaps visual impact would be larger. And with that in mind, I think I would still tonight recommend that we allow cultivators and micro cultivators to be only allowed in industrial zone. Our conversation with owner of this property also indicated that there is very little chance, at least he thinks, that there is a little ability to compete, because these 4 big guys have put in so much money into all this, and they will all be converting. So they're likely, at least in the beginning, to fulfill the demands of the market. So that's what I learned about that part. Now, on the sales end, independently from that visit, I received a couple of phone calls from people asking about locations that are along Berlin Turnpike, but not within Berlin Turnpike zone. So if we adopt this language as I'm proposing it tonight, these 2 properties, these 2 specific properties that I got asked about, would not be able to accommodate this use. I think ultimately, if I have any concerns with the retail aspect of this, I would have 2, and those would be over-concentration. I would not want one retail that is close to another retail, which is why in the proposed language, I provided the 500-foot separation distance. My other concern perhaps could be a traffic impact when these kind of retail establishments are near residential areas. So I will let you discuss this, but I think I came off from all this with thinking that perhaps the best approach tonight would be to approve this proposal as I put it. I corrected the language to reference the Commissioner of Consumer Protection. And really, that was the only change that I made since last time. I still think it's best to allow sales at Berlin Turnpike. It's best to allow production in industrial zone. And I would like to then do either a discussion about whether we could consider an overlay district that would be set along Berlin Turnpike, or we could consider the entire PD zone to allow additional sales. That would, if we want to do that, I would need to re-advertise and essentially, well, maybe technically not submit a new application, but it would be a larger application that we have advertised for. So we wouldn't be able to act on this without some additional notifications and whatnot. I would like, because we are getting questions about this, to have at least these 2 zoning districts where we allow it and have specific standards. And then we can take this conversation further at the next meeting and following meetings and discuss whether we would expand sales further or even production if you disagree with me.
Thank you very much, Renata. Is there any questions from the commissioners? Any questions or comments from the commissioners? Okay, we're gonna, since it's a public hearing, we're gonna open it up for the public at this time. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak to this petition?
Currently, I don't see anyone, Dominic.
Okay, we'll give it a
Yeah.
minute. If anybody is wishing to speak either in favor or against petition 38-21, please raise your hand.
Still nothing.
Very good. Any further comments from the commissioners? If there's no objection, I'd entertain closing petition 38-21 and moving it to old business for possible action.
You have a couple of commissioners with their hands up, sir.
Okay. I'm sorry, Commissioner Woods, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I was just going to make the motion that you did to close this and move it to old business for possible action tonight.
Okay,
Second,
very good. We have a motion by Commissioner Woods and we have a second by Commissioner Fox. Commissioner Sobieski, do you have anything?
Yes, since I wasn't here at the last meeting, I would abstain from voting because I don't have the entire picture.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
okay, thank you very much. So we have a motion on the table to close petition 38-21 and seconded by Commissioner Fox. If there's no objection, we'll move that to a roll call vote. Noreen, if you could do a roll call vote, please.
Sure. Commissioner Fox,
yes.
Commissioner Havens,
Yes?
Commissioner Linares,
Yes.
Commissioner Sobieski,
Abstain because I was not here.
okay, Commissioner Woods,
Yes,
Commissioner Haggerty,
Yes.
Chairman Payne.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay. Very good. Almost unanimous, one abstention. We will close that petition 38-21 and move it to old business. The next petition is public hearing is petition 42-21. Commissioner Linares, if you could read that, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Petition 42-21 zone map change from R20 to PD zone at 35, 65, 67, and 69 Culver Street and 258 Deming Street. Applicant AR Building Company Incorporated, owner RD3 LLC, and Gene Haltner, contact Bongiovanni Group Incorporated, Alan Bongiovanni.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is the applicant there?
I am, Mr. Chairman, here, if I could share the screen.
Absolutely, Alan.
Am I all set? Oh, share screen.
yeah, Alan.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, staff. For the record, my name is Alan Bongiovanni. I'm a licensed land surveyor here in the town of Newington, licensed in the state of Connecticut. My address is 170 Payne Road, Newington. I'm representing AR Building Company in the application before you for a zone change of 258 Deming Street, 65 Culver Street, and portions of 35 and 69 Culver Street. It's currently in R20 zone, and we're proposing to change that to the PD zone. But besides myself, I have members of the applicant as well as my design team. I'm going to introduce everybody. Not everybody will be speaking this evening, but they are here in case the commission may have questions that we could answer as they come up. On behalf of AR Building Company, our construction manager, Emily Mitchell, will be speaking tonight. The principal with AR Building Company, Jason Kambitsis, Jeff Campbell, the project architect with Rothschild Dino Collaborative, William Sweeney Esquire with Tobin, Carberry, O'Malley, Riley, and Sellinger, Scott Hesketh, PE, traffic engineer with FA and Hesketh and Associates, Joe Perigidi, PE, our civil engineer with Weston and Sampson, and Tom Linden, a landscape architect with Linden Landscape Architects. I'm going to start with a brief description of the zone change we are requesting. I'll zoom in on this. The property is located on the east side of Culver Street and the south side of Deming Street. We have, starting at the south, portion of 69 Culver Street that is 9.7695 acres. The next parcel is 65 Culver Street, and it's 1.8564 acres. And the northerly piece is 35 Culver Street, 258 Deming Street and 35 Culver Street, which total 2.6732 acres. We have a total proposed zone change of about 14 acres. The southerly property, known as 69 Culver Street, is actually in both zones. It is owned by RD3. Almost 50% of the property is in the PD zone. The yellow dashed line is the demarcation between the different zones. The 65 Culver Street is entirely within the R20 zone. And then the corner properties, 258 Deming Street, entirely within the zone, the R20 zone. But 258 Deming Street is about 50-50 in the PD and the R20 zone. As the meeting goes on, we're going to discuss in greater detail the reasons for the zone change and how this meets within the plan of conservation and development. But I think at this point, I'd like to introduce the developer, Emily Mitchell, talk about who AR Building Company is and their vision for the site, as well as Jeff Campbell, the project architect. With that, Emily, if you are available.
Yes, thank you, Alan. Hi, everybody. My name is Mitchell Oman at AR Building Company. Well, first, I just want to thank you for your time tonight and your consideration. I appreciate it. So as Alan said, I'll give you a little background on AR Building Company. AR Building is a 50+ luxury apartment development company. We're based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We have a single owner. He has no partners, no investors. So we build all our projects with our own equity. Right now, we have a portfolio of over 9,000 units across 10 states. And we really build our communities for portfolio, meaning we own and maintain them in the long term. And so we really, in this design stage of the project, we take that very seriously because we know that the decisions we're making now will really ultimately be responsible for those in the future. We're also a vertically integrated company. So AR Building Company buys, builds, and manages all of our projects. So we acquire the land and we entitle it. We construct all our own projects. So we have 2 construction divisions that act as the general contractor for all of our building projects. And then we hire all the on-site staff for each of our communities. So each of our communities has a full-time management office. If you look at this map on the screen here, you can see where we're located in the New England region. We really started to expand to this area back in 2014. We have a construction headquarters located in Westerly, Rhode Island. They manage all our projects in this area. Right now in Connecticut, we have 3 open projects. The first is called The Docks. It's located in New London, Connecticut. It just opened in July, and it's been a really successful project for us. Also in New London, we have 60 Mansfield apartments. We're working on a second phase of that project right now. And then across the way in Groton, we have another 130 unit development called Pleasant Valley Apartments. Along with these units, we have another 600 or so units in the pipeline for Connecticut, including those we'll propose here tonight for Newington. So Alan, can you switch to the next slide? Perfect, thanks. So these are just some examples of our recent projects, so you can see kind of the quality of buildings that we build. The building on the upper right, that's a photo of that docks project I talked about that's located in New London. And then below that is 60 Mansfield Apartments, also located in New London. And then the building on the left, I particularly wanted to draw your attention to because it's our 45 unit, 4-story elevator apartment building. And this is what we'd be proposing on the site. It's located, this one in particular is located in our Reynolds Farm community in North Kingstown, Rhode Island. Can you go to the next slide, Alan? All right. Thanks. So these are just some examples of our interior units and community amenities. So if you look at the picture on the bottom left, that's just a picture of our typical living room. The picture in the middle is a typical kitchen. We have granite countertops, stainless steel appliances. We try to have either a patio or a balcony available for all of our units. We find our residents really enjoy having that outdoor space and also the natural light it brings into our units. And then the picture on the upper left there is an example of one of our community rooms. This is in the Docks project. We'll be proposing a clubhouse on our site here, which would have a community room, a fitness center, and a pool as well. And we find our residents really enjoy having those amenities. So that's really a little bit of background on who we are and what we do. As Alan mentioned, tonight we'll be proposing a zone change, which will allow us to develop 225 units of luxury apartments on the site. We'll be proposing that in 5 of those 45 unit apartment buildings. We think this will be a really successful development for the site. We really like the area, we like the town. We think in particular the site with its location next to the commercial along Berlin Turnpike will be really successful. We find that our residents really like to be next to commercial amenities like that. We also think this site is a really good transition. Having multifamily here is a really good transition between the commercial development along Berlin Turnpike and the lower density residential to the east. We'll be proposing a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom units. We find that this is really, really appeals to young professionals or seniors who may not be in the position to own a house right now or not really want to own a house. But this gives them an option to rent and stay in the community. So at this point, I'll just turn it over to our architect, Jeff, and he can talk a little bit more about our design.
Great. Thanks, Emily. So my name is Jeff Campbell. I'm a principal and architect with Rothschild Doino Collaborative. We're a separate architecture firm, completely independent from AR Building, but we've been working with them for, I believe, 22 years now. Personally, I've been working with them for 17 years. And I will say, as Emily led off, because they own and maintain all their projects, it's really been a pleasure for us because we do get to continue to adapt and advance these as we go and really tailor them to sites, really making sure that we're developing something that everybody is really happy with. One of the things that we are really focused on here is long-lasting materials. So AR really likes to feature brick. We like to have brick in all the ground floor areas, and they usually extend up. Thanks, Alan. Extending up to higher elevations. We like to keep it behind some of those porches so that people can touch it. And then we do have a vinyl that usually finishes that up. It is more of a classical look because we feel that this is really a more timeless project. So it's not something that's overly stylized that might be dated in 10 years. We've been doing, as I mentioned, we've been doing projects with them for 17 years, and at this point they're yet to have to renovate any of these, and they all still feel very much up to date. A few other things on the architecture. All the buildings are fully elevated. They have all the units are either accessible or adaptable, which is always a nice feature and opens up a much larger demographic that can use the units. A lot of times you will get empty nesters that will be attracted to these. They all have integrated laundries within the unit. They have walk-in closets. Every bedroom has its own bathroom. So when we have a 2-bedroom unit, we have 2 bathrooms within those units. As Emily noted, they have lots of light. Every unit has a porch. One of the features of the design is that the building is actually loaded. The porches are loaded more towards one side. So what we can do is take advantage of views with that. So here you can see there's just a few porches on the entry side on the top, and then the majority of the porches is on the lower side. We also have condensing units are all hidden up within the roof, so they're not visible from the street at all or from around the sides. And that is not only good aesthetically, but also from a noise standpoint, puts that out of the way. And then, if we go back to the site plan really quick, Alan, I know Alan will go a little bit deeper on the site, but I did want to call attention to some of the things that we were trying to do with the building on the site. And that was really, when we're focusing these views, we're intentionally trying to keep them away from the neighboring residents. We're trying to focus them over the wetland areas. We're trying to keep the buildings also spaced from each other so that the views aren't directly of other apartment buildings, and they're of some of these really of the nicer areas surrounding the property. We also have this clubhouse that Emily had mentioned at the center. This is also a brick and vinyl made to blend in with the rest of the development. It does have a pool, has a lounge within it, has a fitness area, a mail center, and a sales office. Leasing office are usually right there, right as you're coming in the front door there. So with that, I'd be happy to go into more technical details on any of the architecture, but I think I can turn it back to Alan until there's questions.
Thank you, Jeff. So now I'd like to talk more about the zone change, specifically the zone change, the surrounding area, why we believe this is appropriate for this property. This is an aerial photograph. North is to the top. The subject property is highlighted in black, and then the red line is the zone change that bisects from the R20, the site from the R20 on the east to the PD zone on the west. To the west, we have the Lowe's shopping center, big box retail. To the north, Deming Street, just opposite on Deming Street, we have, again, big box retail, Walmart, and Staples, with some accessory pad sites further to the west on the Berlin Turnpike. And then we've got Culver Street to the east. And on the east side of Culver Street, we have medium to higher density housing for the town of Newington. We've got the Landmark Village in this area. And then just south of that, at the southeast corner of our site, we've got the Apple Hill development, which is condos and apartments in the center of the site. To the south, we have the Cobblestone development, Cobblestone Drive, which is a higher density residence in the town of Newington. It's a condominium. And just to the southwest, we have additional PD zone, but it's the Costello Industrial Park and primarily industrial uses. We've got contractor sales in the area just at the east end, at the end of Costello Road on the east side. This commission has approved 2 recent site plans for contractors, storage yards and the like. So if you looked at this property, the R20 zone that we're proposing to change and it didn't have a zone. And the commission in their wisdom said, well, what should we zone this? What is surrounding it? We've got commercial and industrial to the east and to the west and to the southwest. To the north, we've got commercial, retail, and then to the east, we've got higher density housing in the town of Newington. What's the best transition for this property? Knowing that half of this large parcel is already zoned in the PD. Well, typically, I don't believe the commission would say, let's put our least dense housing here. Let's put our largest single family lots in this location. It should be more of a transitional use. And that's why we're proposing to make all of the property a PD zone so that we would be allowed to, as Emily talked about, be able to build an apartment style complex with higher density housing that is a great transition from the commercial to the residential areas, stepping down from higher density to medium density to further to the east, lower density. We think it's appropriate use for the site. The existing character of the site has a lot of different features. There's a lot of natural resources that need to be protected. This site is 26.25 acres in its entirety. This is not all of the R20 zone, but if it's all put into the PD zone, it would enable this type of development while preserving a lot of the natural resources. Everything along Deming Street, all the existing vegetation, the pond at the corner of Deming and Culver, the water course that exits that pond and goes westerly, all that could be preserved, and we're proposing to preserve that. There's the existing house owned by Jean Haltner. She's an elderly woman. She's part owner of the property that we're proposing to develop, and she is on board and has agreed to change her zone because if we're successful, it wouldn't be appropriate just to leave her 1.8 acre lot in the R20 zone. Going further along to the south side, we've got a great stand of trees, heavily forested area with a considerable water course that traverses from the east to the west through the property. All that could be preserved in this type of development, as well as in the central portion of the site, there's a pond. The pond was created by the farmer many years ago when they mined gravel material from that site, but that's the remnant that was left there. So we have a nice piece of property where we believe the appropriate use is a higher density residential to allow a transition from what we have east of Culver Street to the west and the rear of the large box style commercial uses along the Berlin Turnpike. One of the benefits of this style of plan, and we were very careful, this is a former farm that is fallow now, to work with just the better upland areas, work with the grade of the site so that we not have any mass cuts or fills, and we've balanced the material on the site. But we were able to work with the areas that had been farmed. It's hard to see in this photograph, this aerial photograph, but I'm going to zoom in a little bit. When you look at the shadow line in the photograph, that's actually the shadow line from the larger 60 to 80 foot canopy trees that forest and cover the southern portion of the property. The area that we're proposing to develop was farm field. The same thing with this area on the northern portion of the site. It was all farm field that has been allowed to overgrow with invasive species because of lack of use. This type of development would be beneficial to this type of piece of property. There's a lot of areas that have already been disturbed. They're not pristine in their natural state, but those areas where there are environmental considerations and natural resources that one would want to preserve, allowing zoning changes like this would allow us to do this type of development and preserve those areas. One of the things zoning should do is encourage the highest and best use of its property and the real estate in the community. This allows that to be done. With this portion of property that's already in the PD zone, if the zone change is not allowed on the R20, this piece of property basically becomes landlocked and comes off the tax rolls of the town of Newington because you don't really have access to it without crossing a considerable water course, considerable damage and harm to the environment to access this part of the site. It would be very, very hard to see this get developed without the other components of the site development. If the R20 land itself was to be left in its current zone, you'd probably end up with 12 to 15 houses across that piece of property, with clear cutting of most of the natural resources, most of the trees, utilizing most of the street frontage so that you can get some sort of use out of the property. I think there's a lot to be said for this. We looked at it over many months now, and we don't find, it's hard to find an argument, in our opinion, against a zone change for this. And one of the things you'll also notice that with our proposal, 80% of the development is actually in the PD zone with minimal development towards Culver Street in what is currently the R20 zone. One of the nice things, again, about this is we're able to preserve the large standing trees. There'll be 4-story buildings, but you've got a 60 to 80-foot canopy around most sides of the site that will remain, that will hide those from the neighboring views and not take away the streetscape and the views that the neighbors and the residents in Newington have been accustomed to. I think that covers my discussion regarding the merits of the zone change. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about how this meets the purposes and the or how it aligns with our 2020 to 2030 plan of conservation and development. The Newington POCD was drafted to promote choice and economic diversity in housing and encourage the development of housing which will meet Newington's future needs, including specifically upscale housing. While Newington is likely to remain a primarily medium density, single family owner occupied community, the plan notes that the town must seek ways to diversify its housing mix to meet the changing housing needs of present and future residents, especially younger and older people who wish to stay in the community. As household sizes continue to get smaller as part of a national trend, Newington's population will decrease if new units targeted for these changing demographics are not built. Building quality multifamily housing options now is absolutely critical to maintain Newington's population in the long term. And when I go through the plan of conservation and development, on page 4, right in the beginning of the vision statement, quote, Newington will seek ways to diversify its housing mix to meet the changing housing needs of present and future residents. On page 47, we have the special opportunity map, shows the areas of special opportunity. This is area Y in the town's plan of conservation and development. And page 47 states maximize possibilities, quote, maximize possibilities as opportunity sites to accomplish the overall goals of the POCD. On page 56, the policy of economic development chapter. Continue on page 56. 1, continue to promote appropriate economic development in Newington in order to A, provide jobs for residents of Newington and the region. B, provide goods and services for residents, businesses, and visitors, and or grow the grand list and provide new net tax revenue to support local services. Number 4, seek to improve the attractiveness of Newington, both economically and physically, in order to attract economic development. And 5, increase the focus on economic opportunity areas. And then further in the POCD on page 66, quote, number 2, seek to diversify Newington's housing portfolio to provide housing options for a variety of household types, sizes, ages, abilities, tenures, and income groups within safe and stable neighborhoods. You know, I'm very comfortable saying to you that I wholeheartedly believe that what we are proposing here meets the plan of conservation and development, as I had just stated. I'm sorry, but the lights in my office went out because I've got those fancy energy saving light fixtures. I think that kind of concludes our presentation. I know there was some correspondence from a couple people that are seemingly opposed to our proposal. I think I'd like to address those in our rebuttal after they're read into the record. Mr. Chair.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Bongiovanni.
Thank you.
Renata, do you have something that has to be read in to the public?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we had a letter and an email that I actually had Eva distribute to the commission.
Okay. Well, we're going to go.
So we can read it, or the secretary can read it once you allow public testimony.
Okay, very good. Is there any commissioners that have any questions for the applicant before we go to public participation? Is there any commissioners? Any commissioners that have any questions for Commissioner Sobieski?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question for Alan. With the area that's going to be covered with the buildings, excuse me, with the buildings and a paved surface, how are you going to be able to dissipate the water onto that property without having increased runoff?
So through the chair, this will be addressed in great length at the next phase of our next applications. But in a nutshell, we've got underground stormwater detention so that we can take the existing runoff pre-construction condition and mirror that in the post-construction timeframe. Not only are we using underground detention, but areas of the site do have permeable soils. So we've tested it. We've designed a system so that part of the runoff will go back into the ground as you know, we'd like it to. And that's, you know, kind of back to some of the regulations we no longer have, but a low impact development. So we've utilized every available option to us so that we'd have no impact offsite from the improvements that we make.
All right.
Thank you. Is that all set there, Commissioner Sobieski?
Yes, I was just curious because it seems to be, you know, I know that area does flood periodically. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Lenars, you have a question?
Yeah, I just like a little further explanation from Alan. Alan, you spoke about some of the buffer areas, obviously between 60 and 80 feet on Culver. And in all honesty, like, you know, as the development occurs within the town, our first priority obviously is to promote, obviously, development within the town. We like that kind of stuff if it's warranted and allowed within our regulations. And obviously some of this development that has come before us, this particular parcel, people within the area obviously get alerted because, let's just be honest, they have to drive by it every day. So some conversations have come to me, but could you further explain, like when I first heard about this, I didn't know, before seeing the packet, obviously, that was sent to the commissioners, I didn't know that part of it was in the PD zone. And as you look at this, 80% of it, of the development is in the PD zone with the building. And I think with the clubhouse and the entranceways, obviously in the R20. So my question would be, you're driving down Culver Street heading north, I believe. And what are you going to see that's going to be different in the future? Obviously, you got the woodlands to your left of you there. You obviously are going to have an entranceway, and it looks like that clubhouse area. Obviously, you'll see. But any major differences that you're going to see when people are going to be driving down Culver, going to work, coming home from work, heading south on the end of their day, whatever it might be. But what are the major changes that you're going to see there?
So this area here where the entrance is, we have two entrances, but the north entrance is the primary entrance. The southerly entrance is going to be really more for emergency vehicles, a second point of access, and it will be gated. We worked with the fire marshal on how to best accommodate that. But when I talked 60, 80 feet earlier, I was talking about the height of the canopy of the existing trees.
Okay.
So starting at the south end of the site, going northerly on Culver Street, all of this is going to remain the same. We won't touch any of those trees. We won't be clearing trees till you get to the end of the word street here to allow for the entry of the construction of the entry, the center island, and then the northern entry. So there's going to be an opening here. Working with Jean Haltner, the owner of 69, she had requested that if we're granted the zone change, would the developer be interested in providing her the typical buffer that our zoning regulations call for if it was zone? And we've agreed to do that. So this plan doesn't show it just because of the scale, but we proposed a 20 along her south and complete west side, the typical evergreen trees, 15 foot on center, double staggered, 2 rows staggered, so that we can provide her complete buffering so she can enjoy her single family residence. And then as you get past that, this whole area up to Cambridge Drive, past Cambridge Drive to Deming Street, and then all along the frontage of Deming, there will be no change. We're not going to do any cutting, clearing. We will remove the old house, and we will remove the remains of some of the buildings. There was a chicken coop that burned several years. There's small sheds and things like that. Those buildings will be removed, and the ground will be restored for natural vegetation. But we're not clearing the west side. We're not clearing along Deming Street. We're not going to touch the frontage of Culver Street till you get past the existing house that will clear for, I'm going to throw out 150 feet. It may be off a little bit, but about 150 feet for the entrance to the site. And then the remainder is going to stay. This is going to have a nice, it's going to be nice for the neighbors that are used to looking at an open space area because it's still going to have that feel. About 60% of this site is not going to be disturbed. This is, this is an ideal situation for a town that says, we'd like to have some open space and we'd like to have some growth. Well, you've got 26 acres here. About 8 acres is going to be developed for its highest and best use. So it grows the grand list, but it also preserves a lot of the natural resources and the existing character of the neighborhood. I live in the neighborhood. I'm very proud of what we have here on the plans because I think people are going to like it when it's done. It's not going to clear cut a site and look like we built in a cornfield. We're going to work with the site that's there. We're going to develop in the areas that are conducive for development and not affect the natural resources.
Okay, Commissioner Linares, do you have anything else?
No, nothing else at this time without hearing from anybody else. I just feel that it's pretty important for the residents to know that, because my first inclination was, Jesus, they're going to cut this whole wooded area down and they're going to jam these apartments in there. And then people are going to have to drive by buildings upon buildings and their neighborhood, let's say, is going to be disturbed. And let's be real honest here without being candy about anything. The people on Eagle Drive and in the north side of town, they don't care what's going on here because it's not in their backyard. So obviously our first protection is the people that live in this Culver area that drive by it every day. I think we should be considering their views, what they're used to, and obviously not cutting everything down. So I think that's important to understand that the majority of that street frontage that they're going to see is what they're going to continue to see. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. And Commissioner Woods, you have a question or a comment?
I'm muted. I have a couple of questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. To Alan, why do we need the zone change, Alan, for the existing house that you don't own and actually the old farmhouse that's on the corner if there's not going to be really any sort of construction going on there? Is it?
We're asking for the zone change for, I'll talk about the development site first, because it's all integral. It's going to be, it's one parcel. It's 4 separate parcels, but it is being sold as one parcel. And it just makes sense to have and not leave a spot of a different zone. The same thing why we're not changing the zone for, we are requesting a zone change for number 65. When you leave 1 or 2 acres there, it kind of becomes a spot zoning in reverse. You know, years ago when Candlewick was built, that was the Ryan Farm, and then Apple Hill was the Growler Farm. That was all R20 land. And the town in the 60s agreed to the developer's master plan to create transition housing and needed housing for different demographics in the town of Newington. So they worked on a plan, starting at Culver Street, medium to high density, and then going lower as you went up the hill to the east. This piece of property was the remnant of what was R20 land in that whole section of town. Had an application come in years earlier or at that same time, that zone change, that property would probably been rezoned at that time. You know, do we need the zone change for 65 to accommodate this development? No, we don't. Do we need the corner piece? No, we don't. It just makes sense to put it all in the same zone, I think, for a lot of reasons. Thank you.
I can't like what you did. I think you've actually done a pretty good job, even though we're really not looking at this site plan. But I think you've done what you propose to do here. How you've got the building tucked in to the into the site, and well, obviously they will be visible because they're big buildings, but there's going to be considerable screening around the entire property when you're done. I do like that. I guess that's it for now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is there any other questions from commissioners? Okay. Hearing none, without any objection, I'm going to go to the public and persons wishing to speak in favor of this application are to raise your hand, please. Anybody wishing to speak in favor of this application? Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application, please raise your hand.
No hands up at the moment.
Okay. Anybody wishing to speak in opposition to this application, please raise your hand. You're limited to 3 minutes. First one there, we're going to go to Dave Griffith.
You can unmute yourself, Mr. Griffith.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Thank you. David Griffith, 283 Culver Street. I am speaking in opposition to the zone change for a number of reasons. The developers of the Culver Street apartments are proposing a zone change for 14.3 acres situated on the west side of Culver Street. This is more than half of the site total of 26.5 acres. The applicant has presented no compelling need for a zone change from an R20 to PD for those 14.3 acres, other than it would allow their project to be built as designed. The statutory standards for zone change have not been met. The zone change would not address substance and goals of the plan of conservation and development. And in a review of the plan of conservation and development, the first part on page 4 of the vision statement talks about the town being primarily medium density housing. Obviously, this change would undermine that. Secondly, I refer the commission. Again, another policy that was not presented to the commission, which you need to be mindful of, is that you are to continue to protect and enhance residential neighborhoods. There was no mistake in the original zoning. There's not been a change in circumstances of the neighborhood. Property is not blighted. It's not in need of redevelopment. The current zone is already the most compatible with the surrounding uses. And contrary to the staff report, there's no guarantee that approving the zone change would diversify Newington's housing mix. Once changed to PD, this land you're opening up the floodgates to uses for stores, hotels and motels, light industrial, professional and medical offices, restaurants and pubs. None of those uses would be appropriate adjacent to and entering from Culver Street. In addition, there are alternatives for the developer. Instead of building a 200 on the part that are already zone PD without change in the zone. First, the ingress and egress could be moved to Hemming Street. It might require a bridge over the wetlands, but that could still be done in an attractive way. Second, an agreement could be negotiated with Lowe's from the eastern border of his property, similar to how Stu Leonard's Sam's Club LA Fitness Plaza operates. And third, the Costello Road could be extended into the western side of the property. In these ways, a developer can project to stay within the existing zone, making it unnecessary to use Culver Street for access and obviating the need for a zone change. Or it could pursue commercial development plaza. Again, there is no compelling need for this change in zone. And I would ask the zoning commission in contemplating this to deny the zone change.
Okay, thank you very much. Next person, Dave H. Harrigan.
You can unmute yourself, Mr. Harrigan.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can,
Yeah.
sir.
David Horrigan, 30 Candlewick Drive. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight, and thank you all for your service to the town. I want to first say that I am not one of the people that always say, not in your backyard, not in my backyard. I don't resist change, and I also understand the need for development. But the proposed 225 apartments at this location is not what one could call responsible development. My concerns are pretty basic. First, I'm surprised and shocked that a series of 4-story buildings would even be proposed for this area. You're looking at nothing more than 2 stories for several blocks each way. In fact, the entire eastern side of the turnpike. Such a large structure just doesn't fit the characteristics of the neighborhood. My second concern is that the proposed site, although Mr. Bongiovanni has nicely said how he's going to keep some trees, it is the only remaining wooded area anywhere east of the Berlin Turnpike, all the way to Berlin, to Rocky Hill, to Weathersfield. This is the only real significant woodland. So leaving a few trees in the front is great, but it's not the same as maintaining the current woodlands. Finally, my most important concern is the increased traffic that this development would obviously bring. The traffic study paid for by the developer indicates that the project would add 1,225 car trips per day to our streets, and that the increase at peak afternoon time would be 99. The study concludes that such an increase would not have a negative impact. I strongly disagree with that conclusion. As a point of reference, I obtained the most recent Connecticut DOT traffic count for Deming Street. This study was done in the last week of March of 2018. I feel the study is a fair reference point because it was pre-pandemic. The study shows the following trips per day: 5,765 on Thursday, March 29th, 6,064 on Friday, March 30th, 6,338 on Saturday, April 1st. And that may catch your eye or ear that the traffic count on Saturday is actually higher than Thursday and Friday. The reason is simple. A tremendous number of people come down Grizzleville and make a left turn onto Deming to shortcut the Berlin Turnpike to Lowe's and Walmart. But back to the numbers. The 1,225 extra trips in the contractor's traffic study is an increase of 20% to an already very busy street. And the highest peak time has an average of 501 cars. So the 99 extra car trips would be 19.66% increase, or basically the same 20%. The excessively large buildings, the desecration of our only remaining woodlands, and the 20% increase in traffic on already heavily traveled streets makes this project a no-starter in my mind. I am hopeful that the size and the scope of this project will be reduced to a reasonable size. Thank you again for your time and for your service to the town.
Thank you very much. All right, Eric, the next person, if you want to recognize them in line.
Mr. Boshnikov. You can unmute yourself to speak, sir.
Yes, I did. Thank you very much. I'm actually here with my 8-year-old daughter. We are residents of 20 Cobblestone that I believe going to be directly abutted by the new proposed development. And I especially agree with the first speaker who spoke in opposition. Based on everything I've seen and I've heard, I just don't see any logical reason, and I'm a CPA, for why the zoning change should be granted. Because based on the facts and the plans that we've seen, there is no reason for that whatsoever. I agree with the second speaker who spoke about the traffic and everything else, but the way, again, I bought my townhouse in 2012 and I've driven it on every single day. And I just don't see how a 245 unit development that is now 245 unit development, but nothing would stop the future development to 300, 450, 500, whatever. Five buildings right now is one thing, but again, nothing is going to stop developer from building additional buildings on the site, which again, right now leaves plenty of room to do so. How it's positively going to affect Newton's future, while recognize the need to diversify the property tax base, and I'm all for it. But the current neighborhood, the way it is right now, and I'm not one of those NIMBYs either, it just, again, I don't see how the change in the zoning for the proposed area is going to benefit or is going to be useful to anybody who is a current Newington resident. Forget about the, again, not forgetting about the future Newington residents, but the current Newington residency, I don't see how it's going to benefit from that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next one.
Mr. Grubin, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. Waited for quite a bit. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much. My name is Lou Grubin of 277 Culver Street. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present my opposition to the proposed zone changes presented. Approximately 15 plus years ago, the town connected the south and north portions of Culver Street, creating hazardous traffic from Rocky Hill, Cromwell, and East Berlin, circumventing the Berlin Turnpike. As a matter of fact, the town created an annex bypass to the Berlin Turnpike. Rush hour, morning and afternoon, cars are just heading by. Nobody's stopping at the stop signs. Nobody's watching what the limits of speed limits to begin with. Trash collected from all over the place is being thrown on the streets. And it's a really, really hazardous situation. Culver Street has issues. The issues will not go away. Increasing density is not the answer. Adding insult to injury to the neighborhood. Promised sidewalks, when the streets were connected, are not installed. Pedestrians as well as kids on bikes are relegated into street traffic. Kids on bikes cannot safely access the town's park at Lilbrook. Prior to zone change considerations, please address all options of entrance and exits that would avoid Culver Street. And the previous speaker indicated what they may be. At this time, a zone change is not appropriate till a traffic issue is addressed. We do have an annex to the Berlin Turnpike, which is Culver Street, and people have to address it. Thank you so much and have a great night.
Thank you.
Ms. Mealy? Ms. Mealy, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, I'm here with my husband.
Okay.
How are
Okay,
you,
please
Jeff?
just state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Yeah, we're the Mealy's 124 Apple Hill in Newington. The gentlemen who spoke before us were very articulate. So, I am a police officer, have been for 40 years, and so my concerns are a little bit different. Although they articulated some excellent points. I don't see anything regarding the parking spaces or what kind of parking it would be or structures it would be for the cars, for the tenants there. I'm just going to be brief and then I'll get off. But the traffic, again, that would be, as a police officer, having spent years in traffic enforcement and other kinds of enforcement, we're exponentially increasing the traffic, which is already very busy in this area. Not to mention the crime rate that's spiraling. Again, those, you don't have anything to do with that, but it would just be another magnet for these for the criminal element that's taking advantage of the Police Accountability Act and the fact that we can't do our jobs anymore. So I just think it would bring a whole host of problems. And I also agree, four-story buildings in this area would not be proper just by sight lines, et cetera. So, I mean, I appreciate the chance to talk. I was just wondering, Alan says he lives in the area. Is there any way we could know where he lives? I mean, the area is a big area. Is he really?
I'm not going to give you his
Okay.
address, but he does. I can tell you that he does live close by there. And,
Okay. No, I was just curious. Yeah.
Yep.
Just curious.
Not a problem.
So anyways, I appreciate the couple of minutes to talk. I think there's a lot of concerns. I think they were articulated better by the first speakers. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much. We appreciate your opinions. And the next person, Eric?
Yelena, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you. Thank you. Yelena Kirian. I am currently a resident in Cambridge Arms. Been resident for 7 years. and I plan to stay 7 more. I love the area. And it's my first public meeting ever. But I would like you be patient and let me tell you that first, I'm against this plan. I don't think it's ready because I don't see any improvement for pedestrians. There is a lot of traffic on foot currently. If you bring so many people in this area, there is no improvement for pedestrian. There is no improvement for biking. There is no access to residential areas on foot. There is no address for amount of children that will be around. There is nothing about like where they going in the woods so I think it's not, the idea maybe is good, but it's not finished and it's not ready to be accepted yet. Too many people, not enough improvement for and again traffic. Correct, I walk every day this to work on foot, and I it's dangerous to cross the streets, and I can imagine 245 cars coming in. No, it's only 245 units. How many people? So thank you for letting me speaking, but I think it's a no from me, and I will find another more ways to act to express this opinion.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next person.
Kaz, you can unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sir, we can.
Good, I'm Charles Warden. I live on 1988 Webster Street. And we oppose, that is my wife and me, oppose the zone change. She'll speak first.
Hi, my name is Annette Warden at 198 Webster Street. And we've been living in the town of Newington for 35 years. We are on Webster Street. We have 2 large condos. We have a 55+ living community across the street from us. We have a small development of houses behind us, not to mention the other areas that were previously mentioned as Cobblestone, Landmark, and all the other Apple Hill, everything else that we have here. We have a tremendous amount of traffic here. We do not have sidewalks here. Children are walking up the road to get onto school buses. In the 35 years that we've lived here, we travel Webster Street, we travel Culver Street, and there are many other people traveling those routes too as well to get to Rocky Hill and Berlin and other areas. I don't think with the developments that we have here that a 4-story apartment building is appropriate at all. We have 2-story buildings here, but I don't think a 4-story building is appropriate, whether it's 245 units or 300 or 500 in the future. I don't think having an entrance and an exit onto Culver Street is appropriate. I think we're going to have big traffic jams here. Cars aren't stopping at stop signs. People are in the road. We walk the entire neighborhood here all the time. And traffic is a problem currently. Not to mention that we really weren't aware of this proposed development and zoning change. There may be some signs up, a couple signs up, but I think most people in the area are not even aware of it. I'm actually surprised that we weren't sent mail to make us aware of what the town's intention was. I understand that this would be lovely for the developer, but for the Newington residents, I don't think it's appropriate. I am definitely opposed to the zone change. It doesn't enhance our area. it makes everything more difficult in many ways. And I think that the people, the residents of Newington in this area need more information. I think they should have been notified by mail. I'm not sure if that's part of the ruling or not, but I'm definitely opposed to this. And I think it's going to create nothing but a hazard for the people, for the children, for the traffic and everybody else. So I say this is extremely inappropriate. And I hope that Newington does not do this. And now I'll let my husband speak.
All I can say is some of the things my wife said that I was going to. Charles Warden's my name. I walk the community almost every day for health and exercise. I notice many cars don't bother stopping at the stop sign we have. I would ask for more.
We don't have a sidewalk.
There's no sidewalk, of course. And as a gentleman said earlier, a good study should be made concerning the traffic as it is, as it might be, and how it might be down the line should the builder get in there and do what he wants to do over the long term. Traffic matters to us. We're not another Berlin Turnpike. I don't think we need another Berlin Turnpike. And I think adding this construction invites not just the first Berlin Turnpike, but a new Berlin Turnpike. And I didn't buy my house to live on the Berlin Turnpike. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next person, Matt Rossi.
You can unmute yourself, Mr. Rossi.
Hello, Matt Rossi, 17 Franklin Circle. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak out against this plan. I see no reason to change the zoning for this project. Right now, I see 5 buildings, but I see in phase 2, as Emily said, they do things in phases. I see 2 more possible buildings being placed on lot, I believe it's Culver Street 65. I think 4-story buildings are inappropriate for the area. The area does not have 4-story buildings or 2-story buildings. The traffic on Culver Street, I don't believe the numbers are accurate. I travel it every day. It is unsafe the way that it is. As Mr. Bongiovanni was saying, you know, we're not touching the property along Deming. That's probably because there's a lot of water in that area, so there's not much that can be done there. There has to be, I believe, a 100-foot buffer in regulations. I also think that the vagueness of 1-room or 2-room apartments, I think is a little too vague. We can go anywhere from 700 people to over about 900 people. Just based on how you rearrange the numbers for single bedrooms and 2-bedroom apartments. I think the property should stay as is. If the developer wants to develop the property, develop it with houses in the residential area, and then develop whatever they can develop within the already pre-zoned area. Again, I just think it's not going to be as tax friendly. It may come out at first because you'll be collecting more taxes on it, but afterwards, I think the strains on the schools and everything else going on, I think will become more than what we're really planning for. The other concern that I have is you have so many apartments that are planned to be built both on the Berlin Turnpike and on the opposite side of the town, that I think if we flood the market with so many buildings at the same time, I think we're going to end up with empty places where would cause them to possibly think of other ways of filling the apartment so that they get their income. That's just my concern. Again, I'm not for the project, but I also understand that the days of buying honey and pumpkins and feeding the ducks and talking to Oscar are gone. But I don't think we should be changing. I don't think the town should be changing that area. I think the developer should make it work with what they already have. Again, thank you very much for your time. Good night.
Thank you. All right, next person, Eric.
The Kritzmans, you can unmute yourselves.
See it down here? Click it, click it on. No. See the hand?
Yeah.
See the hand? Click on the hand. Go ahead. Bruce.
Hello?
Hello,
Yes,
please
if-
state your name and address for the record.
Hi, Bruce.
If you have two devices logged on, you should
Turn the
mute
other
one of
computer
them.
off. Hi, Bruce Carlson, 31 Franklin Circle, Newington, Connecticut. I am against, turn it off.
Excuse me, you're gonna have to turn one of the devices off.
Zoning change, primarily because of the traffic on Culver and Deming Street. As it currently stands, there's a tremendous amount of traffic along both of them. The traffic increased so much on Culver Street that the DOT had to put a stoplight at its southern end where it meets Route 160. At the northern end, it dumps onto Deming Street. And the closest I've ever come to having an accident is where the parking lot just north of that dumps onto Deming. People are so frustrated that they can't find a place to pull out into the traffic that they just run right out in front of you and you have to jam on your brakes. Also, currently there are no sidewalks on Deming Street between Culver and the Berlin Turnpike. So if you add more traffic and people wanting to walk there, it is very dangerous. I also agree with one of the previous speakers that if we really need another 1,000 apartments in Newington, I would prefer to see more development over at the west end of town by the fast track station, the Route 9 on and off ramps, and where hopefully there will be a railroad station. And I think 4-story apartments are not compatible with this area. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Okay,
Ms. Griffith, you can unmute yourself.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
yes, we can.
Great. My name is Michelle Griffith. I live at 283 Culver Street. I've been a resident here on Culver Street for 37 years. And I'm speaking in opposition to the zoning change. Just to say bluntly, I really don't want any zone changes that would allow for even more traffic on our very heavily used streets. I know so many of the speakers have spoke about this, but it really is probably the most important concern, safety concern. And I just have to say, yes, it is an annex. It is a cut through for the Berlin Turnpike. It is another Berlin Turnpike. And everything, I've been shaking my head at everything that everyone has said so far previously about the issues with no sidewalks and the traffic. And also, I agree the numbers are not accurate. They absolutely are not. Come live in my shoes here. Come, you will see it is not true. I do want to talk about the staff reports and that I believe are questionable, the comments, or just wrong. For example, it says that the Culver Street Apartments will provide very few, if any, permanent jobs. I'm sorry. It's wrong because Culver Street Apartments will provide very few, if any, permanent jobs. Culver Street Apartments will provide no goods and services to the residents or visitors. Culver Street Apartments would grow the grand list, but the developers have submitted no economic study that proves the net tax revenue generated would exceed the cost of local support services provided by the town. And there would be need for many support services with so many apartments and people living there of all ages, senior services, schools, etc. Although more development along Culver Street could be attractive economically, it is debatable that development will make the area more attractive physically than the forested space that it is now. As well as this report, I believe, is mistaken again when it says the requested zone change is not consistent with the POCD. The TPZ has recently diversified by approving nearly 500 units of modern, upscale, market rate apartments in 4-story buildings, including at 3333 Berlin Turnpike, just down the road. The developer for the Culver Street Apartments has submitted no information to describe its uniqueness, including the household types, age groups, physical limitations, and income levels of the tenants it seeks to attract. This developer or any other successors are under no obligation um, um, are obliged to build housing at all if this zone change is approved. And so I end with saying that I continue to be in opposition. I'm very, very concerned about our neighborhood. And I just wanted to thank Commissioner Linares because he really did show his care about our neighborhood and about the people living here, because yes, it is in our backyard. And there are people here that responded that live in other neighborhoods because they care about Newington and the welfare. But it really is a very big issue. Traffic is and safety, for all of the reasons before, are of great, great concerns. And I agree, we're not going to stop here. We're going to continue to hear what's going on. And just finally, after speaking to just a few neighbors that I don't know in the area, and I mentioned if they knew about this, they did not at all. And so I agree. I don't know what the expectations are when a new development comes up, but I would feel that the neighbors and local neighbors should be aware of this, because I know that there are a lot of people that do not know. One neighbor that I spoke to just a little while ago when did not know anything about it. So I thank you for listening, and I look forward to hearing further about this development. Thank you.
Thank you. Kritzmans, you have your hand up. Is there something else that you wanted? You spoke once already. Could you unmute?
You can unmute yourself if you'd like to speak again, or
Yeah. Can you hear me?
yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Our friend Bruce Carlson at 31 Franklin Circle is here with us, and he spoke. And now my name is Jan Kritzman. I'd like to speak. My name is Jan Kritzman. I live at 91 Tremont Street, Newington. My husband Harold and I have lived in Newington since the mid-1970s, established our business here in the early 1970s, and raised our children here. We're proud residents of the town of Newington, and we want to remain here, convenient to our family and our favorite activities. But we have reached a different stage of our lives and no longer need a house with lots of stairs and upkeep. And speaking with other town residents, we understand that we are not alone in this conundrum. Newington has an aging population with many seniors who are still very active and very social and very productive. But there's a serious lack of active adult housing communities here in Newington. So allow me to recommend another much more desirable use for this land in question, if it is to be developed at all, which is also in question. Much less density and an excellent addition to the tax base, and less need for public services like schools, police, and fire. An owner-occupied 2, 3, or 4 units attached active adult community, ages 55 and up, with 1 floor living or master bedroom on the first floor. Perfect for seniors and more desirable and attractive medium density housing. Also, there would be considerably fewer units than 225, much less traffic and much safer. Please consider this as an alternative to the plan on the table, which would provide 225 4-story high-density rental units. Newington has, I believe, 2 or 3 other high-density apartment complexes on the docket that are much more convenient to public transportation than this space and more appropriately situated. Please consider the housing needs of many of our seniors who are settled, comfortable, and productive here in Newington. Thank you to the TPZ commissioners for your consideration.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, and we have somebody on telephone ending in 70 that would like to speak. Go right ahead.
Hi, Rose Lyons, 46 Elton Drive. Although I live on the other side of town, I do use that area as a way to avoid the Berlin Turnpike, as many of the residents in that area have mentioned tonight. I feel safe going in that area, safer, let me put it that way, than on the Berlin Turnpike, but I completely agree with all of those who have spoken before me about the concerns for the traffic. There's probably 2, 3, 4 stop signs along the way from Griswoldville up to Deming, or Culver rather, and inevitably, they just slide through. There's never any police presence there. There's speeding, but it's the lesser of the two evils. And I, as someone, like I said, that does not live in the area, but am a senior citizen, am concerned about the traffic in the area, the safety of the people that live there now, and most importantly, the cost of the increase of services that is going to have to be provided for the people in that area with the addition of this 245 unit. There's going to be plenty of diversity, I would think, with the apartments that are being proposed on Cedar Street, and then we have the 3333 Berlin Turnpike. I won't go into all the other things that everybody else has mentioned, but I want to thank Ms. Kurtzman for mentioning the lack of affordable housing for seniors. I myself am in the house that I grew up in. I'd like to stay in Newington, but there's very little options for people that are of moderate or low income in the town of Newington. So maybe we can get some developers that might want to do something like that for us. In the meantime, let's try and keep the neighborhood the way it is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Lyons. And we have Sally Katz, if you'd like to unmute and speak, go right ahead.
Good evening, Sally Katz, 41 Cortland Way in Apple Hill. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. I absolutely echo everything that previous people have spoken about, but also one thing that has not been spoken about is the increase in noise level. One of the wonderful things about living here is that we do see each other, our neighbors walking around, and the buffering that we have from the Berlin Turnpike. You still hear a lot of what is going on in the Berlin Turnpike, and you do hear a lot of the traffic on Culver that has increased to all times of the day and the night. Having lived in places where apartment buildings have been built, you do get the noise of the traffic, you get slamming doors, you're having more people living there. The noise level does increase, and that does have an impact on the community. As many people spoke about earlier, this really is a residential community, even though there are the Apple Hill complex and the Cobblestone complex. People do walk around, they know their neighbors, there is a community, and there is a sense of quiet and calm and a place, and it's your home, and it's where you seek serenity at the end of a crazy day. And as all of our lives are like that, we're going to lose that. And I also would advocate for additional sidewalks or additional ways of making safe street programs in and around here. For bicyclists, for pedestrians, and adding additional residential units of such high density in this area, I don't think is really beneficial. And also the one driveway in and out during peak times, I also see that backing up into Culver, and that could also be very dangerous. I don't think that a traffic study done, obviously within the last 20 months with COVID is really a true representation. And yet even the statistics of what they showed a lot of traffic. So add to that. Possibly looking at doing something from the other side with Costello Road or something from the Berlin Turnpike side might help, but I don't see where this current iteration is really in the best interest of everyone in this area. And I would also echo that abutters to this, as residents, could have been communicated with better. A letter could have gone out other than 5 signs that say Town of Newington and a phone number, because I believe that you would have gotten a lot more people wanting to discuss this issue this evening. But again, I support everything that my fellow neighbors have talked about, and I appreciate your efforts to make Newington a better place. It's a wonderful place, and I do love it. And I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate your time this evening.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, I don't see anybody else's hands up.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
if I may read these letter and an email that I received into record at this point.
certainly. Thank you.
All right, so Miss Jane Basquetta communicated with us by email, so I don't have the address. But essentially, to put this in a context, she had asked for some information about this development. We provided that to you, and in reply to that information, she states, "Thank you. Really not in favor of this. We have enough apartments in the area and noise/music coming from the pool across the street from there. Unless smaller and set back quite a bit from the street, it will be too congested looking for the area, in my opinion." So that is an email. Next, I received a letter from Mr. Michael Ranalter of 147 Candlewick Drive. That letter was dated October 11, 2021, and it reads, "Dear Ms. Bertotti, I am requesting that this letter be read into the record at the public hearing to be held on October 13th, 2021, regarding petition number 4221, zone map change from R20 to PD zone at 35, 65, 67, and 69 Culver Street and 258 Deming Street. I'm opposed to this zone change as well as any development on this site because it violates the spirit and stated goals of the 2020 Newington Plan of Conservation and Development, POCD. I cite the following from the opening paragraph of the vision statement found in the POCD. Newington will continue to protect its environmental resources, particularly its wetlands and Cedar Mountain. Identifying additional open space and striving to create an open space system will be a priority and will the stewardship of the community's land resources. The POCD also speaks to a workshop that was conducted with Newington residents to get their input regarding the POCD. On page 20, it states that participants ranked preserving open space as their #1 priority. This parcel presents the town of Newington with an excellent opportunity to achieve this goal of preserving open space. On page 14 of the POCD, I quote the following. According to digital mapping, Newington contains approximately 8,383 acres. A summary of land use records found that about 93% of Newington's land area has been developed or committed to different uses, and about 580 acres could be available for conservation and or development in the future. One would assume that the parcel of land addressed under petition 4221 is part of the 580 acres eligible for conservation. The POCD devotes an entire chapter 4, to the topic of open space. The following is taken from page 26. Open space and its preservation and protection is important to Newington residents, perhaps because about 90% of the land area of Newington is developed or committed. The remaining undeveloped parcels have considerable significance in the eyes of the residents. The POCD identified strategies to preserve community character, which are found on page 32. Item number 1 under policies states the following. Continue to preserve natural resources, open space, scenic resources, and other features such as Cedar Mountain that contribute to Newington's character. The plan also states that Newington will look at ways to take advantage of transportation services, such as the proposed rail station and the existing city fast drive busway stations, to enhance the community, including its economy and housing portfolio. There are no mass transit facilities remotely close to this proposed development. This development will be solely vehicle-oriented and will not contribute to the use of mass transit. As you can see, the POCD devotes considerable attention to the issue of open space because Newington residents consider it their #1 priority. This 28-acre parcel of land is perhaps the least opportunity to preserve a large plot of land east of Berlin Turnpike. It is heavily wooded and contains 2 small ponds. Allowing it to be developed would violate a stated goal of the POCD, which is to create an open space system. This large parcel of land provides the Culver Street Candlewick area with a visual respite from the busy Berlin Turnpike corridor, as well as a visual and noise buffer. I would strongly encourage that the town of Newington do one of the following. Purchase this piece of property for the sole purpose of preserving it as an open space. Reach out to independent conservation groups who would be willing to purchase this land for conservation use or a small hiking trail. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Michael Ranalter. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. If there's somebody else that hasn't spoken, I'll allow you to speak if you haven't spoken, but if you have already, then we will be going to the applicant next. I don't see anybody that hasn't spoken yet.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Okay, we're going to move on to the applicant, Mr. Bongiovanni.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Would you also keep in mind that if you'd like, there was a tremendous amount of questions. So if you'd like, we can also address these at our next meeting too. But I'm going to give you the floor, Mr. Bongiovanni. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to summarize a lot of the opposition because a lot of, there were a few different major topics from the speakers. So I'm going to summarize some of them, but I am going to have Scott Hesketh talk a little bit about traffic because I think that was the overriding criticism from the public. The first speaker talked about compelling need, David Griffith. I think in our presentation, we've demonstrated compelling need. We need to diversify our housing. The plan of conservation development speaks to that. Some of the speakers spoke about, or the letter that was written by Mr. Runalter, picked out sections of the plan of conservation development and the buzzwords, the open space. Well, if you look through the entire plan of conservation development, it has areas identified as the appropriate locations within the town for open space or the green belt, or the areas for bike paths and walking trails and things like that. This is not one of those areas that's identified. This is one of the areas that's identified for development, as we talked about earlier in our presentation. We talk about 4-story buildings, a lot of comments about that. The closest building is proposed is 114 feet back to the front corner of the building from the property line. It's probably about 125 to 130 feet from the actual edge of road. The existing standard trees that fronts along Culver Street will be there. I think some of the comments kind of minimalize the efforts we've taken to preserve the vast majority of vegetation on the site and preserving 60% of the natural nature. The only areas that this proposal looks to develop primarily are those that have been farmed in open fields and have now been left to revegetate with invasive species. There was a comment about it's going to become a magnet for crime. I think society is a magnet for crime. I don't know that this development would have any more attractiveness to crime than my neighborhood or your neighborhood or people on the west side of town. Improvements for pedestrians. And this comes out there in the site plan. We've met with the town and spoke with staff at great length, engineering and planning, about how to best accommodate pedestrians. Because of a lot of the environmental concerns, the wetlands, the grading, the sloping, it was a general consensus that there isn't a continuous sidewalk along the east side of Culver Street. We're proposing a crosswalk with whatever appropriate signage and or crosswalk light if the traffic authority so deems it, so that people from this facility can join the neighborhoods, can utilize the public sidewalks as everybody does today. Public notice. Public notice is an issue that is established by the town in their regulations. The applicant has fulfilled their obligation in posting the signs. I noticed one of the people in opposition commented how they walk the street every day, but never was aware that there was a public hearing. Well, the signs have been there for over 15 days. So that is our obligation. The notification directly to the neighbors, and that is done by the town. If there's a problem with that, I would suggest you contact the town, though I'm fairly confident working in this community for so many years that they do a good and thorough job in accordance with their regulations. One of the people spoke about a glut on the market and the vagueness of the 1 or 2 bedroom apartments. Emily, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's 50% 1 bedroom, 50% 2 bedroom for this development. The developer owns over 9,000 units. They have many, many more in the process, either under construction or approval. They are seasoned professionals in the rental market arena. They've chosen this community because they firmly believe that there is an absolute need for this. This is going to be different than most housing, most apartments we have in Newington. Most of it's aged, older apartments, different architectural style. Most don't have elevators, if any of the current ones. This will be fully handicapped accessible for all people. Handicapped of any type will be able to reside at this location. These are larger than your average unit, so that goes to the luxury. It's more space, more comfortable for the people. There's going to be amenities on site, passive and active recreation, along with the clubhouse, gym, pool facilities for the residents to enjoy here. This is going to be a nice neighborhood setting. This has been designed so that there's minimal impact to the surrounding neighborhood. We have taken great lengths to preserve as much of the natural vegetation and features of this property so that there's minimal impact or minimal visibility from the surrounding neighbors. There were comments about noise. This is not going to be noisier than the apartments across the street. You may have more people in one building here than a building across the street, but people are people. We have noise ordinances. It's just like the traffic people talked about. They don't stop at stop signs. They go too fast. There's issues with people obeying the laws. Well, that's a policing issue. That's not a planning and zoning issue. Comments regarding the economic impact. We did not do an economic impact statement because commissions are prohibited from actually deliberating upon economic impact when it comes to zoning issues. So although some developers do provide that information, we don't tend to waste the commission's time. I think they have a firm understanding of housing and how housing works and the implications, whether it's positive or negative financially for the community. But I will say this, housing pays for itself forever. It doesn't come and go. It pays for itself forever. And for the town's benefit, whether these are filled or vacant, the landowner, the property owner will pay the taxes on those units every year. Comments about active adult. This is conducive to all age types. Active adult, young professionals, newly married couples. It's probably not conducive to large families because they're only 1 and 2 bedroom units, but it is, again, elevated buildings, fully protected with fire sprinklers, with all the, handicapped accessibility or universal design elements designed in each unit. And with that, I think instead of belaboring the point, I'd like to turn it over to Scott Hesketh, our traffic engineer, to talk about his traffic report and address some of the public's concerns.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bongiovanni.
Thank you, Alan. For the record, Scott Hesketh with F.A. Hesketh and Associates. Our office did submit a report dated July 2nd, 2021. I believe it's been submitted in support of the application. Very briefly, we did go out and do traffic volume counts. We reviewed the files of the Connecticut Department of Transportation. And since we were preparing the report during the COVID crisis, we relied on the DOT traffic volume counts pre-COVID to project the traffic volumes for the area. We used a growth rate of 1.5% per year based on the historic growth rates from the DOT counts. And we projected traffic volumes through the study area at this location. I won't go into everything in detail, but I did hear a lot of things about this is a cut-through area. There's very high volumes of traffic. Culver Street, based on the traffic volume counts and the DOT volumes and our observations, we're looking at peak hour volumes in the range of 330 to 560 vehicles an hour. Generally speaking, a two-lane roadway has a capacity of 1,000 vehicles an hour in each direction, based on the perfect conditions. It's when we did projections here of the site-generated traffic of 99 trips and 81 trips during peak hours, and people say that's a 20% increase. 20% increase is not the important part. The important part is, does the roadway have capacity to accommodate the increase in traffic? And, based on the existing traffic volumes, the projected traffic volumes, and the level of service calculations, indicating that the intersections both north and south of the site have sufficient capacity to accommodate that volume of traffic. And based on the fact that we can accommodate 1,000 vehicles per lane per hour, and generally speaking, looking at the driveway volumes of 560 in two directions, I believe the roadway itself has sufficient capacity. The intersections at either ends of the Culver Street roadway have sufficient capacity. So I believe there's sufficient capacity in the existing roadway network to accommodate the increase in traffic. We've got good levels of service at the Deming Street, Griswold Avenue intersection. We're looking at levels of service of B. Route 160 and Kobe Road to the south, we've got capacity analysis indicate levels of service A and B during peak hours. The proposed site driveway intersection has levels of service of A or B. So I believe there's more than enough capacity out there to accommodate this particular site generated traffic. I heard comments about it being a dangerous place. Looking at the Yukon accident data information, I think there were 2 accidents recorded over the last 3 years on Culver Street and Kobe Road. Maybe not all the accidents were recorded, but 2 were recorded, and both of those involved animals. So there doesn't seem to be an accident history on that roadway. People may be driving faster than they should. Human nature. We tend to drive 10 miles an hour above the speed limit. I can't say myself that I've observed people passing through the stop signs at those locations. I'm sure that it does happen on occasion. But those are existing residents of town or people passing through town. They're not residents of this particular development yet, as it hasn't been constructed. I assume to the extent that that happens currently, it'll continue to happen into the future. But again, the accident information does not seem to indicate that it's a significant concern. There are sidewalks located periodically up and down the roadway. I hope the pedestrians are using the sidewalks and staying out of the roadway, especially if they believe it's a dangerous situation. But again, the accident data doesn't seem to indicate that. I could go into more detail of the report, but I just wanted to hit the highlights and respond to some of the comments from the public. If the commission has any particular questions they'd like to ask, I'd be happy to address those.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, our attorney, Bill Sweeney, would like to say a few comments in rebuttal.
Absolutely. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Bill Sweeney. I'm a land use attorney and a partner at the law firm of Tobin Carberry in New London, Connecticut. I'm also Connecticut counsel for AR Building and have been since 2014. And have been involved in all of the projects that you saw earlier in our presentation here in Connecticut and working on projects here in Newington and in other communities throughout Connecticut. I want to be very brief. I know this hearing's gone on a little bit, but a couple things I just want to recenter our discussion tonight. I want to remind the commission, and I know your staff will do so as well, that this is a zone change application. It's not a site plan application. It's not a special permit application. The issue before you is whether this strip of land on the west side of Culver Street should be rezoned. We certainly did show you a conceptual plan, some renderings, a site plan for our preferred development. We did that for two reasons. One, to be transparent, to let you know why we're doing this, but also to show you that this site can be developed in a responsible and sensitive way, and if it's rezoned. I also want to just point out a couple other things. There was a comment that was made that there is no compelling reason to rezone this property. I think Mr. Griffith made it. That is not a legal standard here in Connecticut. There's no obligation to prove that there's a compelling reason. The standard here in Connecticut for a zone change, I'm sure the commission is aware of it, is that you must find that you must consider your plan of conservation and development in determining the request for a zone change, its impact to the plan of conservation and development, and also your impact to the comprehensive plan of zoning. And that's sort of a mouthful of words, but the comprehensive plan of zoning is your zoning regulations and your zoning map put together. I think Alan did a really good job of talking about the consistency of this zone change with the plan of conservation and development. I think we can rely on his testimony to that but I just want to talk a little bit about the comprehensive plan. One of the things I think that's really important to reiterate tonight is that with the exception of Ms. Haltner's property and the property in the corner, we're talking about split zone properties here. We're talking about properties that are half PD and half R20. And if you look at the larger zoning map, and I think Alan showed this earlier on, what you have is a strip of land on the west side of Culver Street that is in many ways isolated. It is what I like to say an island. And one of the reasons why we actually are including Gene Haltner and the corner piece is to do away with that kind of island. It is sort of the antithesis of good zoning and being a planner before I was an attorney many years ago. To have these sort of islands sitting out doesn't allow for good planning, particularly when you have zones that are split. Certainly the opinion and the input of neighbors is important, but also the property rights of the people who own these properties needs to be considered. And developing a property that is split between two such different zones, PD and R20, puts a tremendous burden on those property owners, whether it's AR Building doing it or another developer who may acquire this piece from RD3 LLC. Just a couple other points. You heard some testimony from Scott Hesketh. He also provided a traffic report. Our Connecticut courts have ruled time and time again that issues of traffic in the land use arena are issues of expert testimony. Scott Hesketh is an expert traffic engineer. He's probably, I've worked with him for the better part of 25 years now. He's probably one of the most well-regarded traffic engineers in the state. And it's important to point out that when an expert provides you information, and when you're talking about a topic that is considered by our courts as expert testimony, the commission by law is obligated to give proper weight to that expert testimony. And I make that distinction to distinguish between expert testimony and what the courts also call anecdotal testimony. Anecdotal testimony is, I live in the neighborhood, I don't have a traffic engineering degree, but there seems like a lot of traffic on the road, or the road seems dangerous, or I think there's too many cars on the road. That's all fine. And the people in the neighborhood absolutely have the right to provide that opinion. But when the commission, as a legal matter, considers that, you must give proper and due weight to the testimony of an expert when it comes to traffic. And you have that testimony that's been entered into the record tonight. There was a comment, I think Alan covered it, about the impact on costs. Alan properly said that consideration of economic costs is not permitted in the zoning code here in Connecticut. It's not permitted in your regulations. However, I think your planner will tell you that there are significant longitudinal studies conducted by universities like Rutgers that have put out the demographic multiplier studies that show time and time again that multifamily housing, particularly higher end multifamily housing with lower numbers of bedrooms, are always economic positive development types for communities. And in all the communities here in Connecticut where we develop, our units do not have demands on services and are positive economic drivers. The only thing I'd like to finish with tonight is there were some comments early on in the meeting. I just wanted to cover something. I think your planner talked about Mike Ziska and some of his work. There is an application, obviously, before the Planning and Zoning Commission for the actual development. We also have an application before the Inland Wetlands Commission. However, I want to make very clear that there is no obligation to obtain a wetland permit for a zone change. And so you are not obligated under Connecticut law, under the general statutes. And it would be improper to hold up a zone change to wait for a report from the Wetlands Commission. So if you choose to close the hearing tonight, you are absolutely within your legal right to act on this application. I would recommend that before you act on the actual development plan, the site plan, that you would at least review the report, if not the final determination from the Inland Wetlands Commission. But there is no requirement to get a report or a final permit for the zone change application from the Wetlands Commission. And with that, again, I want to thank you for your time tonight. That's all I have to say. I'll turn it back to Alan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Unless you have further questions, I think our rebuttal's complete at this point.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Bongiovanni. I'll give an opportunity for the opposition to speak. So if there's anybody else that from the public that would like to have one last comment, this is your opportunity. And if you could keep it to as brief as possible without repeating your information from previous, it would be greatly appreciated. Eric, if you'd like to go ahead and start.
Mr. Horrigan, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you again, Dave Horrigan, 30 Candlewick Drive. I'll be very quick. I will not even attempt to dispute the expert testimony, and I recognize the legality of the expert in traffic. But I'll ask all the commissioners, just close your eyes for a minute and picture 1,000 cars an hour coming down your street. Capacity is one thing, but the reality of what is safe and proper is different. Again, close your eyes, picture 1,000 cars, that's the capacity of Culver, going down that street. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Botnikov.
Yes, this is Igor Bochenkov, again, 20 Cobblestone. I've spoken already and I don't have a comment. Mine is more of a question on what the next steps are. If you can please educate us, what should we expect next? Is that a question for the town council? Is the zoning commission gonna vote in some fashion? Just like to know what the next steps are in this process. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else?
That appears to be it, Mr. Chairman.
Is there anyone else? Mr. Griffin, would you like to speak? David? Okay, if there's nothing else, I'm going to turn it over to Renata to see if she has, oh, we have a hand up. Mr. Griffith, go right ahead if you'd like.
You can unmute
Please.
yourself, Mr. Griffith.
Okay. I just wanted to, both Attorney Sweeney and Mr. Bongiovanni referred to the POCD. Again, some comment about that there were some portions that were mentioned and not other portions. So I think it's important that the commission does follow that and consult that plan of conservation development. I'd refer you to page 64 of the plan. And again, there was some comment about this was an appropriate place to where housing could be further diversified, the housing stock. And on page 64, it talks about the appropriate places in Newington to assimilate this diversification of housing should be Newington Town Center.
I think we lost you, David. Are you still there?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yes.
Yeah, so again, I would mention to page 64, which talks about where it's appropriate to assimilate and diversify housing. It's not this place and not this area of the town. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? Seeing none, I'm going to see if our town planner, Renata, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Mr. Rossi just raised his hand again.
Okay, Mr. Rossi, go right ahead.
Thank you. One quick, again, my concern with changing the zone is the current single house that's on Culver Street. What is going to stop this developer or any developer from putting apartments right on Culver Street that are 4 stories tall? That's my biggest concern. They can duck all these that they want to build right now behind the trees, which will be shielded until winter. But then what's going to stop a developer, whether it's AR or somebody else, come in and buy that property that's currently a single house and put 2 more 45 apartment building in there? That's my biggest concern when you do this, is you can possibly add another 100 and something bedrooms.
Okay.
This time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt. I'm going to ask the applicant if he'd like to address that one last comment there, if he could. If you could, Mr. Bongiovanni.
Certainly. So in the zoning regulations in the PD zone, you need a minimum of 5 acres to do residential for residential special exception. That property is 1.85 acres. So it on its own could not be developed as apartments under our current regulations. Could it be combined with this property in the future? That's possible. But anything that has to get done would still require a special permit, still would have to go before this commission to get approval. There's no slam dunk implied here. As I stated in my testimony, and Attorney Sweeney, it's proper to change both these pieces of property. Do we need to change them for this development? No. But that's the appropriate thing to do in zoning. You don't want to leave those little islands in a separate zone. In essence, everything we're talking about tonight was left an island. It was left an island by the previous commissions in the 60s when they master planned and allowed the Candlewick development to happen. This should have never been left in R20 zone, but there was no application before the commission to make an action. Now that Mr. Haltner is no longer around, it's no longer a farm. The estate has the property. It's in 2 different zones, and it's appropriate to combine it into one zone. You're not going to convert the PD zone up against Lowe's into R20. I'm sure of that. And the only other choice is to convert the R20 zone to a PD so that it's a great transition from the commercial to the medium density housing that's around this property. Thank you.
Mr. Bongiovanni, I have a question. I thought you stated earlier that if this was all changed in a zone, that you have no intention of building where the single family house is and that would be taken down. Is that correct or am I mistaken?
Well, so the single family house at the corner of Deming and Culver Street would be removed. It would be the sheds and things like that. If I did say it, I'm not referring to 65 Culver Street. We have no authority. That's not our property. It's part of the application for the zone change because she asked to have it part of the zone change. But it's their own separate property and not part of this development.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Thank you very much for clearing that up. I appreciate that. I'll ask the public one last time if there's any other questions or comments that they have. I'll offer the public one last opportunity, which is above and beyond our rules. But if there's anybody from the public, I don't see anybody right now. So I'm going to go to Renata. Did you have anything that you'd like to add?
Mr. Chair, most of the stuff that I would like to bring to this conversation has already been spoken to. As Attorney Sweeney said, I would advise you to, when considering this application, keep in mind that this is a zoning map amendment application, essentially. So what is relevant in review of this right now is to look at uses and scale of development that is currently allowed in R20 zone. And that zoning district essentially is limited to single family homes only. The PD zone is more intensive use zone. This area is surrounded by uses that are PD zone specific. They're sort of like a textbook of what you can have in PD zone. When you're also looking at this, certain uses that could happen here are presented to you tonight. An intended use for the zone change is this residential proposal, concept of which was discussed to perhaps a greater amount that I would have liked tonight, but the residents did have a number of questions, so I hope that this answers a lot of those for them. However, if perhaps that use weren't going to be proposed here, there were other uses that could be proposed. That being said, I also want you to understand the nature of the area and the nature of normal commercial market. Another large-scale retailer is not very likely to want to locate on this parcel because there will be simply not sufficient traffic count to support such development. Similar is the case very likely for any kind of restaurant, brewery, any sort of more intensive type of use as is. So most likely than not, what the market would really support here would really be a residential development, just like one that was proposed tonight. When it comes to scale of development, this area is developed in multifamily unit kind of fashion anyways. There was some mentioning of densities of development. Now, density can be low by making buildings perhaps 2-story, but spread around the entire property. So what you end up is having a property with a lot of building and a lot of parking and a lot of pavement and rooftop and things like that. The design in a PD zone allows you to have buildings that are taller, that accommodate perhaps higher number of people, but those developments tend to be more compact in a development sense. So you will have perhaps less of a site developed for buildings and parking and things like that. So that's another thing to consider. Plan of conservation and development is a document that you should all look at. we have pulled out in our memo several sections of the plan that, in our opinion, support this proposal for the zone change. That being said, you're required to consider it and not necessarily your finding does not have to be consistent. You just have to understand what's in the plan and think about that when you're making your decision. So when you're thinking about this, whether that's tonight or you keep the hearing open and the decision postponed to a later date, please keep in mind that it's a map amendment. The example was shown as to what could go there, but that is just one of the many examples of what you see here. And with that being said, I think I'm gonna just conclude unless there are any questions to me.
Thank you very much, Renata. I appreciate it. I'm going to open it up to the commissioners. I'm going to ask the commissioners if they have any questions for Renata or comments. Commissioners? And how do the commissioners feel about whether or not you'd like to close this public hearing or whether or not you'd like to leave it open? I have a tendency where I'd like to leave it open, is my opinion. I'd like to be able to read over some of this information a little bit more and get a grasp of it and read over the comments from the public before I act on it. Any commissioners have any thoughts?
Yes, I have some, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see the hands there. I moved my thing. I apologize. Go right ahead, Commissioner Lenars.
No worries at all. So I tend to agree with what you just said in terms of possibly leaving it open. Unbelievable exchange of information between the developers, Mr. Bongiovanni, the residents. It seems like when you listen to the residents, you're compassionate to what their needs are. Understanding to what their wants and desires are for their neighborhood to be disrupted. When you listen to Mr. Bongiovanni and his team of people, you understand that the people that want to propose this development want to do as much as they could in this development. And you can't knock that type of thinking either. Anyone knows me that I've served on this commission in 2 different stints now for many years. I'm always pro-development. Love development in the town, and there's nothing more that I like to consider the neighbors in the town and the residents of the town and their utmost care for the town. But I think it's, like you said, Mr. Chairman, keeping it open, maybe rereading some of this stuff and coming up with some ideas ourselves, maybe to propose to the developers in terms of what can be done, what can't be done, with the utmost consideration for the residents. To be kept in mind. I think that would be my 2 cents, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner Woods?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree that I think we should keep this open until our next meeting. I want to make sure that any of the public that didn't get a chance, I'm assuming, will hopefully step forward if they are so interested in speaking, whether for or against this at our next meeting. And I'd like to see where it goes and also digest with a lot of information that came out tonight before I believe we should close this to the public. So I would like to see it stay open.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner Woods. Commissioner Fox? Commissioner Fox, you might be muted.
How's that?
That's better.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I did it again.
That's all right.
Anyway, I was saying I really appreciate Attorney Sweeney's comments. It made me think, because I have been thinking just about all through our the comments that rather than talking or commenting, at least as far as I'm concerned, about the nature of the site plan,
I would like to, as Renata said, consider what use this property can be put to if it's changed to a PD zone. And according to what Renata had posted, some of it just of right uses are not all that compatible with the neighborhood. So I also would like to think a lot more about it. I would like to see, I do like to see development, but I also like to maintain our open space. So I definitely would like to take 2 weeks to think about it. And thank you, Alan, for a very good presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner Fox. Commissioner Havens?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I concur with everybody that we should leave it open. Based on what some of the residents were saying, they didn't seem to think that they had enough notice or information to go forward with. Given an extra 2 weeks, neighbors will speak with neighbors and we can get some more input. I thought it was an impressive presentation. I like the idea. Is it right for that area? I'm not sure yet. I'd like to hear some more from the public, both pro and con, and I think leaving it open is a smart thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Havens. And Commissioner Sobieski?
Yes, first of all, I'd like to keep it open and see if the neighbors have anything else to say. Secondly, I'd like to get a copy of the traffic volume report from Haskins, please. Thank you.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Sobieski. And our town planner, Renata?
Yes, Mr. Chair, just one more time, as you are extending or keeping this hearing open, please be focused again on the map amendment portion of this application. So when we come here next meeting, having perhaps in mind some conditions that are related to either special permit or site development plan would not be appropriate as something that you could or should do with the map amendments. I also will ask you to review the uses, not the list that I posted, which is a simplified representation of uses that are there and probably not all inclusive, but check in our regulations and check for the scale of development, and then keep in mind the actual location itself, because as I said, there are some uses on that list that could be very scary, but are also very unlikely to, be able to ever materialize in this particular location. So just keep your minds open in that sense. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Renata. Yes, we need to stay focused on this. I think one of the most important things that all the commissioners should think about is the transition. With an R20 property right there, it's almost sandwiched between PD with apartments on both sides. So this is something that we really have to think about, whether or not it's the right thing to do. So we're going to leave this petition open for 2 weeks. And our next petition, our next public hearing is petition 42-21. If Commissioner Havens, if you could read that for me, I'd appreciate it. Wait a minute, I'm sorry. We've already done 42-21. I apologize.
We were just discussing that one.
Yes, I apologize. The next thing on the agenda is the approval of minutes. I apologize. We have minutes, TPZ minutes of 09/22/2021 regular meeting. I'll entertain a motion.
Sobieski, make a
So
motion.
moved from Fox.
So we have a motion made by Commissioner Sobieski and seconded by Commissioner Fox. All those in favor, please unmute. Say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries to approve the minutes of 09/22 2021. Next thing on the agenda is under new business. We have petition 44-21, our biannual review of both quarry operations and site plan approval at 301 Hartford Avenue, applicant and owner, Tilcon, Connecticut Incorporated. Contact is Christopher J. Costello. Is the applicant available?
Yes.
Go right ahead. Thank you.
Okay. My name's Chris Costello. I live in 231 Garden Street, Weathersfield. I'm the environmental and land manager for Tilcon. And here to represent the biannual review of the Both Quarry operations. Not much has gone on the last couple of years. Pretty unremarkable. Most of the quarry excavation has been within the quarry bounds. There's one small area in the center of the site that we've removed some stone. Other than that, things have remained pretty close to the same. The security fence is being maintained. Other than that, it's pretty much unremarkable.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. We'll go to questions from commissioners. Do we have any questions from commissioners? Renata, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
No, Mr. Chair, we reviewed it. And as I indicated in my memo, our engineering commented that these plans as submitted were acceptable, subject, them being stamped and whatnot. So we are on the staff on the technical end with this application.
Okay, thank you very much, Renata. And Mr. Costello, I would assume that the Both company is still aggressively keeping the dust under control, watering it and sweeping a plan, correct?
Yeah. We've implemented numerous dust control strategies, and I'm unaware of any complaints this year.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Any other comments from commissioners? Okay. Well, thank you very much. The next thing we're going to move on to is petition 47-21, section 8-24 referral from Newington Town Council for a proposed municipal dog park. Applicant is the Newington Town Council. I'll turn this over to Renata to
Mr. Chairman.
So I will ask Eric to display the plans for this, but as you will see in a minute, the town essentially the town council has referred this to you under the general statute section 8-24 because the town is intending to lease for, I believe, $1, about 1.5 or so or 1.3 or so acres of land between Constantly and John Stewart Drive. This is an agreement that is for 3 years. And after those 3 years, there will be need for both parties to agree to extension. There are essentially, as I'm hoping we will see soon on these plans. So you see on the green area, this is the fenced area that we would like to lease for a dog park. The area will be fenced in. It is going to be split into 2 sections, one for small dogs and one for large dogs. We are going to have some parking that's proposed along the Constantly. Some details on that are still being worked with the engineering department. However, there is plenty parking in this area. There is a municipal parking lot across the street if anybody needs some spillover parking. And as a part of this agreement, the town will be required to maintain the site clean and in good order. That's going to be our responsibility. We will be, if this proceeds through the council, we will be leasing this from Hartford Hospital. It's their property. So under mandatory referral, you must have done a million of this. You know that what the council is asking is that you review this and then give them a preferably favorable referral on this so that they can proceed with the decision. If you give them a referral that is non-favorable, they can supersede your referral by supermajority vote or 2/3 vote. So this is all that I have on this one. Unless there are
Okay.
questions.
Very good, Renata. Thank you very much. Is there any questions for the town planner from the commissioners on this? Commissioner Fox?
I don't know if I have, actually have questions for the planner. I have comments that I like to make.
Go right ahead, Commissioner Fox. Go right ahead.
Okay, all right, thank you. Well, for one thing, and although the lease calls for, you know, if the Hartford Hospital decide they do want to develop it, that they give proper notice, and you know, the lease is shut off. But in the meantime, you're gonna have a dog park there, and you're gonna have, you're gonna be, you know, kind of disenfranchising a lot of residents. So I don't think that makes much of a difference, and we're talking much sense. And we're talking about parking along Stewart Street, or John Stewart Drive, sorry, and overflow over from Market Square. I can't really see people, adults, youngsters with their dogs on a leash walking across Constance-Lee and then to John Stewart and getting involved with whatever traffic is there. I'm not sure what traffic there is, but I would love to see a study. And I also would worry about any breaches in the fences. I have taken my dog to dog parks in Weathersfield and Rocky Hill, and although their fences and containment is quite good, I have seen some breaches in there and have been told that dogs have gotten out. If that should happen around here at this dog park, with, you know, right in the center, they're right in the middle of a big mess. Constance-Lee, Lowry Place, Stewart Drive, and possibly East Cedar Street, Market Square itself. I don't know if maybe there's some other property away from this area that Hartford Hospital would like to lease. If not, I would rather not see a dog park here, but it would be nice if maybe somebody can talk Bill DeMayo into using some of his property or the Parks and Grounds property behind Churchill and Clem Lemire. There's some off that trail. There are some big areas between Clem Lemire and Foxborough. That I think would make a much better location for a dog park. You know, Weathersfield, Rocky Hill, Cromwell, they're all off the beaten path. And so those are my comments, and so far, and that's it. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Fox. Commissioner Sobieski?
Yes, first of all, going back to the ball quarry, should we not have voted on this to close the hearing and move to old business?
Well, Mr. Sobieski, we're going to vote on that under old business. So that will come up.
Close the hearing and move it to old business.
It just moves automatically.
It wasn't a hearing. That was not a public hearing item. That was just a regular.
Secondly, on dog parks, I agree with Commissioner Fox, but also I've driven that area early in the morning. There's quite a few kids that come out of the apartments waiting for school buses. And I think it would be an issue if the dog got out, bit a kid, you know, waiting for the buses and stuff. I don't think this is a good area. I would like to see something off the beaten path. I did take my older dog to Weathersfield. My daughter comes down with her dog and go to Weathersfield Park. It's way in the back. The dogs do have a tendency to get loose. I would hate to see a dog get loose and get hit on Constance-Lee or Cedar Street. I think that, we can find a better place, whether it be town-owned or rented, either farther on back, John Stewart, or somewhere in that area. Just my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Renata, would you like to, did you have something else you wanted to add?
Just to, I think this is an assumption on my part, but I think the reason why this particular location was chosen was for its central location and the fact that actually Constance Lee is not a particularly high trafficked area, period. It is an area that's accessible from like most sections of the town. I also believe that the intent of providing this dog park was essentially to Newington residents and not sort of a regional dog park like, the one that would then generate attendance of dogs from Weathersfield, Cromwell, and the other towns. It is a walkable area. It does have a bus stop there with, there is people, not just children, but there is people actually waiting in the morning there for this. And I think that the fact that this is so close to so many residentially areas is one of the reasons why this particular location was chosen.
Very good. Thank you, Renata, for that explanation. I appreciate it. Is there any other questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Woods, go right ahead.
I think it's a good idea. I do like its location. I've actually been to the site with the town manager. It is actually pretty far off Constantly Drive. And I think people are pretty respectful. The dogs come in and out on leashes. There is an area typically that is gated between the two small and large dog areas where the dogs then come off leash. So they are fenced in. I mean, obviously, can a dog escape? I'm sure dogs have escaped from parks before. But, people that typically bring dogs to these dog parks know that their dogs are socially compatible to be in that type of environment. And I think this is a great thing as we start to see more development coming into Newington Center, and we want to continue to that. There's the high-rise apartments. If there are dogs in that, this is a very nice short walk. The Northwood development area, just to the south of it, also is easy access. Anybody walking into town has an opportunity here to get in and socialize with other people while their dogs can socialize in these parks. My wife became a dog owner about a year ago. I am not a dog owner, my wife is. But I do go there with her occasionally to different dog parks. And I've got to say, I've never seen any issues at all. She has a small dog. That's where we spend, obviously, any of the time that we're there. Is there barking? Yes. But I mean, this is 250, 300 feet off Constantly Drive. It's a pretty desolate area. There's not much going on there. There's elevation changes. There's still going to be plenty of screening and buffering. I think it's a great idea. I think it's long overdue. I like this area much better than the Young Farm, which seems to be used now as a dog park. And the problem with the Young Farm is people let their dogs go off leash there, which is totally inappropriate. But nonetheless, that's what happens. There is an area that's definitely posed for problems. Someone's going to get bit or a dog's going to get bit. I think this is a much more controlled area. And I think this is really good for the town. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Woods. I agree with you. I like this location. Is there any other comments from the commissioners? Commissioner Lenars, go right ahead.
Yeah, I have to agree with Commissioner Woods in terms of the location. I am not a dog owner, but I understand the compassion they have for these types of things for people who are. So, Mr. Woods, congratulations on being a dog owner. I think the place, I think it is set back enough where it's not right on the street. Like he said, could a dog escape? Yeah, of course. But The people that usually attend these types of things are usually rule followers and compassionate for the other dogs there as well. So I think it's a good spot. And I think it's a good thing for the town.
Thank you, Commissioner Lenars. Is there any other comments from the commissioners before we move to old business? Any other comments? Okay, we're going to move to old business. The first petition is petition 38-21. Commissioner Lenars, could you read that for me, please?
Actually, Dominic, we added the other.
Yeah, we added.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yes. I apologize.
Thank you, Eric.
No worries.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Eric. Before we go to old business, we have another number C petition 48-21. We have an 8-24 for Ann Reynolds School Project. And I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Woods for an explanation on this as chairman of the building committee. Thank you, Mr. Woods.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I'm sure all of you know by now, this is something that is mandated by our town charter as well as the state Board of Education that an 8-24 needs to be done whenever there is a substantial change to a building or piece of property that the town owns. While Anna Reynolds is being substantially renovated, there are no real changes to the building. The building footprint will stay the same, and I believe they're going to open up. I sent some plans earlier.
Okay, Eric's putting them up now.
Okay, Eric's putting them up now. All right.
Yep.
Working on it. Yes. Sorry.
Yep.
Okay, Eric. Thank you. And when you open it up, sheet 9, Eric, that's the sheet that I want to work off. That's the overall site plan. The only change to the exterior of the building is a very small elevator shaft that actually is located on the interior of the courtyard. If Eric does get this opened up, I'll be able to show you. Pretty much the clearing lines are the exact clearing lines that are there now. We are not really expanding the footprint of that property at all. Again,
Did you send the plan? Because, oh, hold on, I'm getting them.
I sent the link to the
Yeah.
plans.
Let me see if I can find. This is not what I. Okay. I apologize. Just give me a minute or so.
It's okay.
So I can find these.
I'm just going to go on talking briefly, and I'll go over it again once he does get it open for us. Again, the roadway coming in off of Reservoir Road is basically staying the same. I believe it might widen 2 or 3 feet. That's it. We're not taking any additional land. There is one-way traffic in now. It will be two-way traffic in. The parking, if any of you are familiar with, there is some parking on the right side of the entry. That will remain there. The only additional parking is being added down in the lower level of the existing parking lot now. We're trying to recreate and improve circulation and separate bus traffic from parent drop-off traffic. Buses will enter in and out of Fen Road as they do today, but we're improving the radiuses there right now. So actually, there we go. There you go. If you just blow that up a little bit, Eric.
Yeah.
And actually, that is sheet 30. Can you go to sheet 9?
This is. I was trying to find the sheet numbers on there. That was part of the problem.
Yeah. So you see it right up in you're on 13.
Okay. All right. Hold on.
It just shows it better.
Understood. I just
Yeah.
got to go find it again.
Any luck, Eric? No?
Yeah, hold on. There you go.
Beautiful. Just blow it up a little bit.
Yep. That's too much, probably.
That's good. That's pretty good right now. So again, the entry off of Reservoir Road stays pretty much the same as it is right now. It does widen just a little bit to allow the two-way traffic. Swings around. There is now going to be an island in the center of the traffic flow. So when you come in, there is an island there that would be with barriers and fence. So you cannot cross it except at the crosswalk. So we're going to direct the children and parents to the crosswalk. It allows, if you are dropping off your son or daughter, to come in, drop off at the front of the school, circle back around and come back out the Reservoir Road, where now the parents come back down and mingle with the buses, which are on the lower parking lot if you're familiar with the school. Buses will come in off of Fenn Road, come loop around and stack all along the building as they do now, and then exit back out Fenn Road. The only other change to the exterior is there's going to be a canopy at the front entrance. And again, other than that, there is no change other than the elevator. And if you look in it's the left-hand corner of this, of the parking lot, as you come in and loop around, that section there gets expanded. There's about 22 spaces that we're adding in that lower left corner, which would be the northwest corner. Yes. And again, everything else really is an interior renovation of the building. The elevations aren't going to change. Obviously, gets new roof, new skin. It will look like a brand new building. Footprint stays exactly the same as it is right now. And with that, I would take any questions.
Very good. Is there any questions from commissioners for Commissioner Woods? Any questions? Yeah, there's not much change on the outside. I see that you're making a little bit more parking, trying to control the bus traffic, obviously, with the residents bringing children there. And I'm sure you're taking pedestrian sidewalks and making sure that there's safe access for all the kids there, I'm sure.
There is, and there will be I forgot to mention this, there's going to be a gated entrance way to where the buses come in and come out of, so that the parents and the buses can't mingle at that rush hour in and before and after school. The gate will come down for an hour and a half period, and then go back up to make sure that no mom or dad or bus can and get through to where they don't belong. So I think we've done a really good job of making the site much safer than it is today. Wide sidewalks. The sidewalks will be a minimum of 6, 7, 8, as much as 8 to 10 feet wide. There is a sidewalk now that goes all the way down to Fenn Road. That sidewalk is actually staying. Some of it gets replaced through the construction, but most of it is staying intact. The athletic field down below actually isn't really part of the school. The Parks and Rec department uses it. It will probably be used as a staging area through construction, and after construction, it would be restored. But there is minimal impact to the site.
Okay, and Commissioner Haggerty, you have a question? Go right
I
ahead.
just had a question. Commissioner Woods, can parents enter from Fenn Road, or is that just going to be buses only?
Buses only.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the commissioners? And does our town planner, Renata, do you have any questions for Commissioner Woods or any comments?
No.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you very much, Commissioner Woods.
You're welcome, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity to make this presentation to you tonight. And again, as I stated last, we've been moving right along with this project a little bit ahead of schedule. And by taking this action, I'll get to the State Office of School Grants because we do need this approval from the 8-24 Council to move ahead with our funding.
Very good. We'll be happy to take care of that.
Thank you.
We will go to old business now, and our first petition under old business is petition 3821. And if I could have Commissioner Havens, if you could read that, please, I'd appreciate it.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Petition 38-21, zoning text amendment, section 6.16, regarding the adult use cannabis sales in the BT zone and cultivation in the I zone. Applicant contact Newington TPZ.
Okay, and we have a motion. If you could read the motion.
Certainly. Approved. Move to approve the zoning regulation amendments with the effective date of October 26, 2021. Reason for the approval. This proposal is consistent with state law, and it will provide general standards by which we can regulate these novel and unfamiliar uses, which are consistent with the goals and objectives of the town's POCD.
Very good. Thank you very much. We have a motion by Commissioner Havens. Do I have a second?
Seconded by Haggerty.
And seconded by Commissioner Haggerty. And is there any comments, any questions?
I believe Commissioner Sobieski has his hand raised.
Okay. Go ahead, Commissioner Sobieski.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was not here for some of the meetings, so therefore I will be abstaining.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Noreen, if you could do a roll call vote, please, I'd appreciate it.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Who will be sitting in the seat of the abstention?
I don't know. Do we usually sit somebody for when they abstain?
Don't usually, Mr.
I mean,
Chairman.
No.
Renata?
Never.
Okay. Noreen, if you could do a roll call vote, please.
Okay, Commissioner Fox,
Yes.
Commissioner Havens,
Yes.
Commissioner Linares,
Yes.
Commissioner Sobieski,
Abstain.
Commissioner Woods,
Yes.
and Commissioner Haggerty,
Yes.
Chairman Payne.
Yes.
All set.
Motion passes. What was it?
6-1.
6-2 and one abstain.
One abstain. Right.
Okay, thank you, Noreen.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Woods.
I believe when that happens, that actually the vote is unanimous because the abstention goes with the majority. In this case, obviously, the majority is yes. So it's basically a unanimous decision.
Yes, typically an abstention votes with the majority.
Yep.
Thank you very much. So
Yep.
this is a unanimous vote for that. Very good. The next petition that we have is 4421.
Are we not leaving this?
This is 4221 is being left open, so we're going to skip that one. And petition 4421, our biannual review of both quarry operations and site plan approval at 301 Hartford Avenue. Applicant and owner, Tilcon Connecticut Incorporated. Contact Christopher J. Costello. If I could entertain Commissioner Woods to make a motion on that.
Sure. Move to approve the above reference petition 44-21 biannual review of quarry operations and site plan approval at 301 Hartford Avenue. And owner Tilcon Connecticut Inc. Contact Christopher J. Costello.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Woods. Do I have a second?
Second by Sobieski.
I have a second from Commissioner Sobieski. Any other comments? Questions?
I would like to, Chairman,
Yes, go right ahead, Commissioner Woods.
in and out of there throughout the year. And I think that Tilcon done a really good job in the last 18 months of really trying to attack the dust issue that goes on in an operation like this. Every time you're in and out of there throughout the day, you think that we've had, one of these tropical rainstorms. The ground is really, really, really wet. So I think doing their best try to make sure that no dust leaves the site. And I just think they need to be recognized for that.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Thank you.
All right. We have a motion by Commissioner Woods. Did we have a second?
Yes, I seconded it.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Sobieski. Noreen, if you could do a roll call vote, please, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. Commissioner Fox,
Aye.
Commissioner
Yes.
Havens,
Yes.
Commissioner Linares,
Yes.
Commissioner Sobieski,
Yes.
Commissioner Haggerty,
Yes.
Chairman Payne,
Yes.
unanimous.
You've heard me, but I'm a yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
It's okay.
very good. Unanimous
Thank you.
for approval for petition 44-21. Our next thing on old business is petition 47-21, which is a section 8-24 referral from Newington Town Council for the proposed municipal dog park. Applicant is the Newington Town Council. I think that we have a good location here and I'm in favor of this. And I'll entertain a motion from Commissioner Linares.
Sure. Petition 4721, section 8-24 referral from Newington Town Council, proposed municipal dog park, applicant Newington Town Council. I move to issue a favorable report for the proposed municipal dog park on John H. Stewart Drive. Reasons for the approval: the proposed use is consistent with the POCD in that it encourages and promotes community interaction within the regulated space for dog owners.
Second.
A motion made by Commissioner Linares and seconded by Commissioner Woods. Any comments, questions? Noreen, if you could do the roll call vote, please, I'd appreciate it.
Commissioner Fox,
No.
Commissioner Fox,
No.
Commissioner Havens,
Yes.
Commissioner Havens,
Yes.
Commissioner Linares,
Yes.
Commissioner Linares,
Yes, again.
Commissioner Sobieski.
No.
Okay, Commissioner Sobieski,
No again.
Commissioner Woods,
Yes.
Commissioner Woods,
For some reason, it has to be
Commissioner
twice. Huh?
Haggerty,
Yes for Haggerty.
Okay, and Chairman Payne?
And yes for me.
Okay,
So we have 5-2 in favor. Is that
Five.
correct?
5 in favor, 2 opposed.
Thank you very much, Noreen. I appreciate it.
No
Right.
problem.
The petition 4721 passes 5-2 for the 8-24. Our next thing on the agenda is E petition 48-21, which is an 8-24 for Ann Reynolds School renovation project. Commissioner Woods, should I put somebody in place for you for this vote?
No, I don't think it matters.
No? Okay.
Obviously, I've got nothing interest in this. I'm just
Mm.
we're for the town saying,
Yep, I just checking, that's all. Okay, I'll entertain a motion for this petition.
Petition
move it.
48-21, section 824, referral from Newington Town Council, proposed Anna Reynolds School renovation project. Applicant, Newington Town Council, approve. Move to issue a favorable report for the proposed renovations for Anna Reynolds School at 85 Reservoir Road. Reasons for the approval. The proposed use is consistent with the POCD in regards to community facilities as discussed in Chapter 11 of the POCD.
Second by Fox.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Haggerty and a second by Commissioner Fox. Any comments, questions? Noreen, if you could do the roll call vote on this too, please.
Did we lose her?
Mhm. Noreen?
I think she froze up.
Okay. Would everybody please unmute and
Commissioner Fox? Yep.
Oh.
Commissioner
Yes.
Fox?
Yes.
Commissioner Fox?
Yes.
yeah, I think she's having trouble, Mr. Chairman.
yeah, no problem. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed?
Commissioner
I've got it under control.
Okay,
here, Noreen.
Linares?
Is there any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Okay, moving on, we have a couple petitions under scheduling. I'm not sure if Renata would like to talk about those at all.
I will just give you a very brief on this. So Eric and I have been talking to a business owner who would like to open a virtual golf establishment. It's like all indoors, not unlike Montana Axe throwing place, but it is virtual golf. And when we look at what is allowed under the recreation, we in industrial zone explicitly preclude these kind of uses. So I am submitting a small amendment to essentially eliminate that exclusion, and we will go into more details on that at the hearing. And then the other one is when we talked about whether we should opt out or not opt out of those parking provisions that I discussed with you for apartments, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom things with 1 parking and 2 parking spaces per. We agreed to keep it as is in the state statutes. And then that night I was thinking about an overzealous attorney and perhaps one who would be brazen enough to approach me and say, well, your regulations are not valid, period, because you don't comply with state. So now I'm proposing this and I'm going to give you half a parking space per 1-bedroom unit. So I'm proposing an amendment to just essentially legalize the language that's in the state statute so that somebody does not take me for a ride here. And that's that. So those are the two.
Very good. Thank you. And town planners report.
So with that, I had actually prepared a little bit of a lengthy report, and I feel it's 10:20 and perhaps tonight is not the night for that. So I will just tell you that I will submit this to you at the next meeting. I will be talking to you about some stuff that I've been looking into for Newington Junction area in regards to the planning project that we have ongoing there, as well as our progress on revising business town center zone regulations and business Berlin Turnpike zone. I've been looking at uses like continuation of that stuff that we talked about B zone. So for now, I'll just leave it at that. But you know, next meeting perhaps will be a little lighter, and I'll be able to get into more details on that.
Okay, very good. Do you need any feedback from us concerning the change of PD, of allowing the PD on the Berlin Turnpike for the marijuana sales? Would you like any that to go over that now?
So if you want to talk about that tonight, we can. I can also bring that to you at the next meeting. Okay. I am considering two options, whether we should consider the entire PD zone for at least retail, or whether we should do an overlay zone on that. And for the production, I gave you, what we learned from this. So think about that a little bit more. And if you still believe that we should consider allowing cultivators and micro cultivators in zoning districts other than industrial, we can discuss that at the next meeting.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Renata. Is there any other communications besides the CROG letters? I would assume that was it. You have
that was
else?
it. The only thing that I will add is I should have addressed this when the resident asked about future steps, but all that stuff is on the future agenda on that document that I published. And if anybody, has like a social media site or something, I wouldn't mind if that ended up being posted there. There is clearly interest enough. And if we get the phone call, then we'll explain the process going forward. But all the tentative dates are on that agenda already.
Okay, thank you very much, Renata. Okay, we're at public participation for items not listed on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes. If there's anybody from the public that would like to speak, please raise your hand. I'll give you a couple minutes. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak?
No one with their hand up at the moment, Dominic.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Okay, without any objection, we're going to move on to remarks from commissioners. Do commissioners have any remarks? I want to just we'll move on to the chairman's remarks from the chairman. I want to thank everybody. We had a very long meeting, but it was, I thought, very helpful. I want to thank Commissioner Woods for all your hard work on the building committee. I know it's a lot of work, and I want to thank you. And I'm glad we were able to move that 8-24 forward for the building committee. And that's it. Thank you, everybody, and have a good night. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Motion made. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Good night, everybody.
Thank you all.
Have a good
night.
night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.